introduce people who have been able to bring this session together. We have our Chief Mobilizer, Clinton. Clinton, maybe you can unmute and introduce yourself before we start. Clinton? Or Isabella's? Okay. I'm not sure if they can be able to hear me. Maybe someone can confirm they can hear me. Hello?
Yes, you can be heard.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe you can start recording when we officially start.
I have started the recording.
Okay, thank you. Perfect. So maybe to confirm if all the speakers are here, Oscar Rombo, are you here?
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome very much. Damaris Kula, are you here? Okay, maybe we'll wait for her to join us. Engineer Shammah, are you here?
Yes, thank you.
Welcome. Okay, Shelter Marta will be represented by Kithinji Muriungi. Kithinji, are you here?
I'm here.
Oh, perfect, perfect. So thank you very much for joining us. Maybe Engineer Brenda can say hello before as we wait for more people to join. Engineer Brenda?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, how are you?
We are fine. I'm fine, thank you. Thank you all for joining the session. We are glad to have you here. For all the students, this is such a great opportunity for you to network and learn from our speakers.
Yes.
Be attentive and feel free to ask questions in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Brenda. Maybe we can have someone from the Engineering Students Association, Clinton or Isabella, just to say something before Engineer Shammah can start.
Excuse me, Fiona.
Yes.
You know, just a quick note. For anyone who is not a host or a co-host, please, if you have something to say, please put it in the chat. Like, for example, Fiona's called out someone from the Engineering Students Association to mention something. So if you are going to volunteer, please text in the chat so that I can unmute you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for reminding us that. So I think we have 50 participants now. I think we can start. I think this is a great turnout. Again, we are very honored to have you speakers to come and tell us great things. Mostly students, we lack when you're in an engineering class, you're taught so much, but then when you go outside when you graduate, you don't know which path exactly to follow. And there are so many things in the engineering profession, in the engineering career. So we are very, very excited to hear what you're going to say. I'm just still waiting before we start, someone from Engineering Students Association to start, to say something. Clinton, are you here? Clinton? Isabella? Dennis Chariot? Okay, maybe they're having some technical issues. So I guess then we can start. Sorry, I've been speaking a lot. I've not been able to, I didn't introduce myself. So my name is Fiona Mugambi. I'm a fourth year electrical engineering student. I'm a passionate student leader. I serve in various capacities, both in the Engineering Students Association and also in IEEE student branch. And I'm very excited to be here. And yes, I can't wait to hear what you will have for us. So without further ado, I feel the best person who can boost, how do I say this? The best person who can actually talk about their merits, what they've been able to do, is actually the person himself or herself. So without further much ado, Engineer Shammah Kiteme, the floor is yours.
Excuse me, Fiona.
Yes?
Just shortly before Engineer Shammah takes over, both
Yes.
Bella and Dennis have something to say. Perhaps
Okay.
you could give them the floor before
Okay.
Engineer Shammah.
Okay. Bella Isabella Oyoo is the Engineering Students Association chair lady. She has been a student leader for 4 years, I believe. She serves different capacities, also not in school, but at home. She's a charitable leader also. So maybe we can continue the introduction.
Thank you very much, Fiona. I hope you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Isabella Oyoo, Engineering Students Association chairperson. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our guests in my capacity and on behalf of the Engineering Students Association. I also want to invite students to this forum. This particular mentorship program comes at a very crucial time when the University of Nairobi is experiencing a transition of students to the industry 2 academic years at a time. And beside that, we're also having our 4th years getting into the job market looking for attachments. And I can see that it's going to be very competitive out there and flooded. So I'm really grateful that we got to do this particular mentorship session. I'm super excited, especially recognizing Engineer Shammah Kiteme from AAK. We have met in a couple of Zoom meetings, and I've also heard a lot about him and his along his career path. So thank you very much, Fiona. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Isabella Oyoo. She's an iron lady in University of Nairobi. She's not only known in engineering field, but also like the whole University of Nairobi. So we learned so much from her. She's brought us young leaders up. She has always been there for us. And yeah, kudos, Isabella. So without further much ado, we're going to start with Engineer Shammah. Maybe Gisheru, maybe you can present their profile as I'm also introducing them so that even the participants can also see. So Engineer Shammah, so I think you will pardon me, I will not have my video on the whole time so that bandwidth issues, so that everyone is able to see. So Engineer Shammah's video is on, which is on right now. So Engineer Shammah Kiteme has 12 years experience in practice, cutting across civil and structural engineering, involved in buildings, wastewater systems design, and stormwater containment. He has a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, and he also has an MA in Project Planning and Management, and is currently pursuing an MSc in Civil Engineering. He also serves as a Vice Chair of the Engineers Chapter and is a Council Member of IEEE. So Engineer Shammah, karibu sana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Fiona, for that kind introduction, I intend to share something, unless I'm guided that it will be shared from the other end.
Yes, it will be shared. I just want to, let me open it up real quick. Perhaps you could also guide me with how you would like the slides to move. Like when you want to move to the next one, just let me know.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. Like you heard, my name is Engineer Shammah Kiteme, and I'm very privileged to be here today. It reminds me the time I was a student at the University of Nairobi, undergraduate, for my undergraduate studies. We had seasons where ESSA was active and seasons where ESSA wasn't active. But suffice it to say that I was an ESSA member all through until I graduated. I want to take this opportunity and really appreciate the organizers. I recognize the effort that you put into this. Bella for ESSA, and I'm very grateful the way ESSA has been very vibrant. We can tell from outside. I know recently you invited us to a function where you wanted us to support, and we really did so. Of course, Fiona, and I appreciate your participation in student leadership. I appreciate Grace. Grace Zivo has been getting in touch with me and making sure that I don't miss this session. And generally, I also want to acknowledge my co-speakers, all of them, because of this great opportunity we have to interact with you students. It's a valuable moment. If I recall far back, the sessions we had with speakers like Engineer Patrick Obath, formerly of Shell, they were quite educative for me. And so I do hope that the session today will be useful to us. I would have liked it to be more interactive, of course, guided by the moderators, but you'll allow me to present a very few slides just to begin the conversation. And I hope that we'll draw lessons, and I'll be very glad if we have an interactive session. So I was invited to this webinar, whose topic is basically on navigating career paths in engineering profession. Next, please. I would love to, yes. So next, please, that is just about the introduction to the webinar. I think it is taking time to register from my end. So please take me to the next slide. So I'll just give you a short intro about myself. Go back, please. I will begin by intro about myself. So Fiona touched on it, but I think it is helpful for students. So please go back to the slide that begins about my profile, please. Thank you.
I think the stream is taking a bit of a while to show up. I currently am on the slide.
Okay, then what I can do then,
would it be better if you presented the slides?
Then because it is taking time, yes, it works better if I present the slide. Huh? Would you allow me, please?
Yeah, you should be able to present
the
slides. Let me stop sharing.
Okay, thank you. Am I on now?
It's just a black window for now. Oh yeah, now it has popped up. Yes, now you can see.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much. So we were invited for the webinar, and we were told that the webinar is about navigating career paths in engineering profession. Like you heard, my name is Engineer Shammah Kiteme. I hold a BSc in Civil Engineering from the University of Nairobi and an MA in Project Planning and Management. I'm also currently doing an MSc in Civil Engineering from Dedan Kimathi University of Technology. I have 12 years experience as a civil engineer. After I graduated on 18th September 2009, on 21st September 2009, I reported on my first job as a site engineer. Then after some time, I changed to my second job as an assistant engineer. Then I moved on to my third job as a project manager, and then as an engineering director, which completed my journey in employment. Then I left to private practice, and I founded a firm called Senchprom Service Limited. And we have services in civil engineering and project management. I've generally practiced in structural engineering, so wastewater and stormwater systems. I'm an elected council member of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, and currently the vice chair, engineers chapter of AIK. In 2018, I was appointed to be to the National Implementation Committee on Eurocodes. That is under Kenya Bureau of Standards. And in 2019, I was appointed to the National Committee on Finalization of the Building Code by the PS Public Works, Gordon Kehalangwa. Last year, I was appointed to a committee on policy on deep excavations and abandoned sites under NCA. And at IEK, I serve under Policy Research and Advocacy Committee. And occasionally I write articles, and my articles have been published in the Daily Nation and the Standard. Now, I thought I'd begin with this quote from Professor Taylor, who is the chair of the Washington Accord. Washington Accord is one of the three accords, together with Sydney and Dublin Accords, under the International Engineering Alliance. And so Professor Taylor said that engineering is at its core a creative activity of synthesizing and implementing the knowledge and experience of humanity to enhance welfare, health and safety of all members of the community, with due regard to the environment and sustainability of resources. Quite mouthful, but basically the entire philosophy of what we are at the university for 5 years to internalize is to understand that we have to be creative. We have to gather data and synthesize it in a knowledgeable manner in respect to the welfare of human beings, their health and safety, towards meeting the needs of the community. And while doing that, be respectful of the environment and mindful of sustainability of the resources that we are using. And I'll give you an example of a road. When you're doing a road, the road is meant to serve the community, for instance, but you must be respectful of the health and safety of all members of the community. And the road should be done in a way that respects the environment and not compromising the survival of the future generations, which is basically what we call sustainability. Now, most of you who are students are already doing your bachelor's degree. I'm assuming you're not necessarily at the University of Nairobi. Probably some of you are in other universities, Kenyatta University, Moi University, Technical University. So you probably are doing a graduate degree, an undergraduate degree. A BSc, it could be BEng or BTech. And this is regarded as an entry point for career in engineering under the International Engineering Alliance, under where Washington Accord, Sydney Accord, and Dublin Accord have. Now, during this stage, it is expected that you as a student, you'll acquire some attributes that now can launch you properly into a career in engineering. And some of the attributes is, engineering knowledge, which involves some mathematics, some understanding of natural sciences, chemistry, physics, engineering, geology for civil engineers, and probably appreciate engineering problem solving. Now, all of us, we solve problems one way or the other, whether we are electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, environmental and biosystem engineers, civil engineers, we are one way or the other solving problems. And so it's very pertinent for us to get that attribute and capability. The other very important thing is to be able to solve, to analyze a problem. As an engineer, you are really going to be dealing with problems all your life. And solving complex engineering problems becomes a very important attribute. It's important for me to point out that by the time you land into engineering school, there is no question about your intellectual acumen and capabilities. What is expected of you as a student is basically to learn now the process of analyzing every problem that you may encounter. And another very important attribute you should develop as an engineer, and at this point as a student, is design or a way that you can develop solutions to engineering problems. Can you develop a circuit? Can you design a circuit? Can you determine the loads that are going to be, your circuit is going to take in, your cable, for instance, the equipments, as a mechanical engineer, can you design a solution to a mechanical problem? As a civil engineer, as an agricultural engineer, that is an important attribute that it is expected that you're going to achieve at the university in the 4 or 5 years that you're going to be at the university. It's also very important to develop capacity to do investigations in engineering and also be able to use modern tools in engineering. Which softwares can you use in mechanical engineering? Solid mechanics, solving problems. In materials engineering, for example, hydraulics, fluid mechanics, all those, which softwares, which tools, which resources are available for you? Do you understand them? That becomes very important for you to acquire as a student. And the lecturers are there to give us, expose us to get those attributes. The other very important, the students we should acquire is our interaction with the society. Our knowledge and understanding and our responsibility to the society. For example, would you come out and design, like the wheel, I remember Two Rivers Mall. There is that wheel, that wheel that people would go and go around as they enjoy themselves. when you are designing that will, do you appreciate the interface between your work and the society, so that you design a safe will, for example, that is not going to fall and harm people enjoying the process. So it's very important to have understanding on the way engineering solutions affect environment and sustainability. And the first quote from Professor Elizabeth Taylor also mentioned that ethics is another very important thing. Now, ethics to a doctor may be a different thing. Ethics to a journalist may be a different thing. But there are ethics that govern the professional practice of an engineer. And it's very important for us as engineers to understand them all the way from the university. I remember as a student, Professor Ishaga taught us on professional ethics. Now, it's very important as a student also to know how to function well as an individual and also to function in a teamwork. And I think this is why the university sets us into teams. You know, I remember as a student, we were created into teams or a group to do an assignment. And I remember some of us would joyride. And whatever other students do is what we'll submit as a group. And we'll get the marks because anyway, there are always those who will do and others will not do. But basically, it becomes very important to function. One as an individual, being responsible in that group that you've been put in, but also in the team. Very important today also communication. As a student, make sure that you can communicate effectively. Because you could be a genius, and you are, because you got enough good grades to take you to the field of engineering. But if you cannot communicate your innovations and your brilliant ideas, no one will buy into them. And so it works very well. And I remember in our first year, we had a common course called communication skills. Another important aspect to gain as a student is on project management and finance. Now, when we were first year, or some we did economics. Now, we did fundamentals of development in first year. I don't know whether it is still what you do. And somewhere, I think in third year, we did a unit on economics for engineers. And so it's a very important aspect, engineering management, economics, and project management. I can tell you how important this is, that I found myself as a project manager. And that's how I decided to go back to do an MA in project planning and management, because basically I realized that it was juggling so many things in one project. I also acquired my competency I did project management professional under project management institute. So just to gain my proficiency in project management, and those are very important aspects. And another very important attribute for you to acquire as a student is an aspect of lifelong learning. Now, I will tell you, since when I was in the university, we probably were using STUDPRO for structural design and PROCON. While out here, and that is over 12 years ago, there's so much. There is Autodesk robots for structural analysis, ETABS, I mean, so many protostructure, you know, Bentley has so many solutions, for instance. And so I have to learn continuously. So basically, you must acquire that attribute of lifelong learning because it is very important. And you cannot avoid that as an engineer. Otherwise, you're going to become irrelevant. Now, after getting the graduate degree, which is a 5-year course in our case, I think in others, jurisdictions may be different. And after graduation, it is expected that as an engineer, we will acquire what we call initial professional development. You are exposed in a work setting and you get initial professional development. at that point, it is expected of you that you will demonstrate some professional competency. Then after you demonstrate that capacity of making professional judgments, you apply for registration as a professional engineer. Now, at this point, I need to mention to you that the moment you graduate, it's very useful. You apply to become a graduate member of Engineers Board of Kenya, because that is the moment you apply and you get registered as a graduate member. It is when you start counting your years of experience, then you can afterwards now apply to become a professional engineer with Engineers Board of Kenya. And all these are regulated under Engineers Act number 41 of 2011. No, number 43 of 2011. And then if you prove through a professional interview and writing a training and experience report and a project report, and after submitting your taken through interview by EBK, you get registered as a professional engineer. Now that is when you can acquire the style of the name Eng before your name, just like my name is. And you can say Eng Shammah Kiteme, professional engineer, PE, at the end of my name. Shows I'm a professional engineer. So then now you have a license to practice engineering. You can sign drawings, and really now you are a professional engineer. You can be considered as a professional engineer. Hitherto, you have basically been learning. So you can move from junior engineer to senior engineer, and actually into leadership in engineering sector. And then you've actually launched yourself into solving society's problems ad infinitum. That is what engineers do, actually entirety of your life. I'll take a few minutes and then tell you some of the professional competencies that you will be expected to demonstrate after you graduate, because I appreciate some of you are now in your 5th year, others are in 4th year. Some of the competencies you will be expected to grow into is that you should be able to comprehend and apply universal knowledge and principles of good practice in engineering. This should not sound so mouthful. I remember a project I did somewhere. The feasibility study was done by American engineers. I came in as a Kenyan engineer and I designed it completely. I tendered it and I supervised its construction to completion and commissioning. While we were commissioning, and actually while during the construction, we also worked with some American and UK engineers. And when we were commissioning, we commissioned with Australian engineers. So in one project, we were able to work on a common project, American, Canadian, engineers from the UK and Australian engineers, one project, which tells you that your knowledge is universal and in the sense in which we apply it as engineers. But up and beyond that, there is also practice under local jurisdiction. And you should also be able to comprehend it within whatever context and line you have taken. And I know electrical engineers probably will be moving into energy. Now, you are expected to demonstrate understanding of the Energy Act, for instance, and the regulations under the Energy Act. You will be able, if you are a civil engineer, to demonstrate your understanding of road design manuals, for example, design of low volume steel rods. For mechanical engineers also, what are the regulations in place under Kenya Bureau of Standards and under other authorities within the government that govern your practice locally, not just universally? And again, you should demonstrate the capacity to solve a problem. If you're a mechanical engineer, are you able to do plumbing and drainage design for building, for instance? Are you able to design an HVAC system? An electrical engineer, are you able to design, a power system, either low volume, light current in telecom or heavy current? Are you able to solve a problem? And you design an adequate and an appropriate solution to that problem. And are you able to do an evaluation of an engineering situation? as a structural engineer, as a civil engineer, can you do a structural integrity check on a building, on a bridge, on a road? Another very important competency to demonstrate is protection of the society. As a mechanical engineer, can you be mindful of installing a lightning arrestor in a building, for instance, so that the society is protected? As an electrical engineer, circuit breakers or something, there's something that protects the society and the interests. And very important, the legal and regulatory environment. We have, for instance, in the construction sector, the NCA Act number 41 of 2011, the Engineers Act number 43 of 2011, the Energy Act, the Environmental Management and Control Act of 1999, the Roads Act of 2007. Do you understand the environment within which, the legal and regulatory environment within which you work? When you are designing a wastewater system as a mechanical engineer, do you know the effluent standards set by NEMA, National Environmental and Management Authority, that you are supposed to meet? And what are the guidelines under IEEE for you as an electrical engineer to comply with in your installations and your designs? So you must understand the legal and regulatory environment that you're going to be working with. Basically, in our practice, we have to work within ethics. And ethics, can you take responsibility? Can you be respectful of others? Are you fair and honest? Very important aspects for you to inculcate as a professional. And can you manage engineering activities? Can we give you a project and you manage it? Can we tell you, we need you to design certain engineering system, and you implement that kind of assignment? Are you able to manage engineering activities? Can you do work breakdown structure if you have a project? So that if you are designing an HVAC system, you appreciate, I need to get the loads, I need to understand the ambient temperature, I need to factor in CIPSE guidelines or a SHRI guidelines if you are designing to those standards, or HTM standards. As a mechanical engineer, can you really understand those systems and factor them in as you design your system, the loads, and how you respond to the loads to achieve the desired end? Very important. You also grow your capacity to communicate, to write technical reports and present them to clients, present them to all stakeholders, present them to boards of directors, present them to the CEOs, present them to employees. Can you write reports and present them? Communication, very important. And of course, lifelong learning is something that we have to do. We have to learn continuously as an engineer. Very important. Judgment. Can you make judgment as an engineer? Oftentimes, you are going to be called on a very short notice, and you're expected to make a professional judgment on a matter. Sometimes the matter has serious life implications. For example, you are in a hospital setting and you have an oxygen plant. An oxygen plant is supporting patients who are on life support, on ventilators. You are supposed to make a professional judgment on an oxygen plant. And in a blinking of an eye, the decision you make can cause death for someone who is on a ventilator. Can you make good professional judgment? And this is something that you must acquire as you grow as a professional. And when you make a judgment, can you take responsibility for decisions you make as a professional engineer? These are very important professional competencies that you must grow into as you grow into your career. Because really, the reason why you are an engineer and not a doctor is because the society can look up to you to answer a question as an engineer, not as a witch doctor, not as someone who was an MBA or an economist or we expect you to answer questions as an engineer, and that becomes very important. and your professional judgment becomes very key. Now, I'll give you an example. Soon I was invited by one of the prominent lawyers in this country to audit a number of facilities that have been affected by SGR. So they have cracks, what have you. And my work is to professionally tell whether it was possible for the works on SGR to affect that those buildings. And you are expected to stand in a court of law and give expert witness. And your expert witness carries a lot of weight. The first expert witness, who was an engineer, was in the UK in the 16th century. And when the engineer gave his evidence, the judge considered the engineer's evidence as actually the ruling, because he is the expert. And what he says is conclusive. It is final, because he is an authority in that area of his practice. So as a professional, when you've grown into your area of competency and you go into a court of law, your professional judgment and evidence carries a lot of weight. So with that background, now you have finished as a student, you have graduated, and you have launched into the industry. What are some of the career paths available? I've just listed a few, but there are very many. Number one, you can go into public service. I have so many colleagues who are working in the public service, and they're excellent engineers. Personally, I've never worked in public service. In public service, you can be in the national government or in the county governments. You can also be in private consulting, like what I do. And I have always worked in the private sector. You can also work with the international bodies in international public service, like United Nations, so many organizations that are international. You can work in them. You can work with non-governmental organizations, Medicines and Frontiers, Norwegian refugee community or organization, JICA, USAID, so many NGOs. You can also join academia, and I have friends of mine who are in academia who went ahead and did immediately their MSCs and PhDs. Now they're in academia. You can also pursue some non-engineering interests. You understand that if you don't want really to remain in the line of engineering, when you graduate, you have options. I want to point out to you some key skills that will be very important for you as a graduate engineer and as you grow into your profession. I was in Melbourne in 2019, the World Engineers Convention, and we had robust conversations on the future of engineering. And one of the things that came out is that engineers will be required to develop, to inculcate, to grow into some very important skills. And World Economic Forum identified some future top skills that are very important for the future of jobs. These are very key for us to grow into at whatever stage in our career we are in. And number one is capacity to solve complex problems. And this is very important. I can guarantee you, as an engineer, when you leave university, you will be solving problems almost on a daily basis. And the capability to get a lot of data, synthesize it, and get information from that data and solve a complex problem will come in very handy for you going into the future. Another critical aspect and skill is critical thinking. And I remember we did fundamentals of philosophy when we were in first year. And that was exposing us to deductive thinking, inductive thinking, and all other ways of analyzing situations. You know, can you advance a thesis and an antithesis and resolve it at a higher level of truth? Engineers are expected to be, in a sense, philosophers. And so critical thinking is very important because we don't solve problems for today. We also project into the future and look into solving problems of the future today. Take it, for example, under COVID-19. We were hitherto having classes physically, meetings physically. But I remember students, I think they were from the University of Nairobi in our conference, in our conference, in one of the conferences, I think in 2019. Institution of Engineers of Kenya organizes an annual conference. And I remember students talking and making a presentation why in the future a CEO does not have to fly from London to Nairobi to make a presentation. They can have a virtual interaction and avoid running with taking the flight and pollution that the jet fuel will cost and the money spent. So that was very futuristic thinking for that young engineer who was presenting to us. I don't remember his name, but that was futuristic thinking. Creativity also becomes a very important, and in the quote by Professor Elizabeth Taylor also indicated that creativity becomes very key to engineering, solving problems creatively. Now, people management is an area many engineers fail in. Engineers just want to become Albert Einstein and do E is equal to MC squared. They want to understand Newton's law. They want to integrate and differentiate vectors in space. They want to talk of delta, theta and theta and stuff like that, and hide under the drawing table drawing. No, the future is not there. We need to grow into people management skills as engineers. The other important thing, and this came up, is the aspect of coordinating with others. And I pointed this out. Teamwork becomes very important. And so this is a skill that is very important. When you are sent into groups, are you able to cooperate with your classmates to do a project? Or are you the person who just waits for them to do, and then you joyride into that group? Emotional intelligence. Can you be able to carry yourself in situations that are antagonistic and adversarial and come through unscathed? Can you monitor, manage, and control your emotions? Another very important skill as identified by the World Economic Forum is judgment and decision making now. I think I already talked about that. And so these are very critical things. Can you make judgment as an engineer? And can you make a decision? Very important also, negotiation. Can you negotiate? You negotiate every day. You negotiate with clients, how much they are going to pay you. You negotiate with contractors in drafting contracts and in tenders. So negotiation is almost a daily thing for an engineer. And cognitive flexibility. Are you pedantic? Are you regimented in your thinking? Are you one-directional thinking person? Cognitive flexibility becomes very important, that you can adapt to situations. Adaptability becomes very crucial. As I move towards conclusion, I have picked an equation because we engineers are very fond of equations. You sit with engineers all over, not only in campus, even out here. Life gets boring when it is stories. But the moment you provide an equation, then we smile because we like to take all factors and bring them into a mathematical solution. And so I cobbled up something here. That the 21st century engineer will need to be curious because curiosity will lead you to learning. We'll also need to practice integrity. As engineers, we are entrusted with billions and billions of projects. Nairobi Expressway is a project worth 62 billion. It is entrusted to an engineer. Ethiopia grants Ethiopia Renaissance Dam in Ethiopia. It is entrusted to a project manager who is an engineer. It is a project taking billions and billions of money. And so we must be people of integrity. Integrity basically means we just do what is right, whether anyone is watching us or no one is watching us. The other thing is we must develop the culture of being truthful. If the client is telling you this and that, and it is not the right thing to do, truthfully tell me no, and don't cheat a client. Someone said a doctor will bury their mistake, but an engineer lives with their mistake. And so if you are not truthful and you design system and lie that it will work, the failure will be broadcast in a daylight. So it pays to speak truth. Obviously, we like to employ logic in problem solving, and this becomes very important. But also, I picked service because we must take an approach of service to humanity as engineers. Every project we will do, whether it is a road, whether it is a hospital, whether it is a power system, it will be service to people. And so we must be service-oriented to people. And so I added that with other important things that I think are very important for engineers. And one of them is focus. Very early on this, you must be focused. Personally, as a student, I was very focused. I wanted to be an engineer. So when I graduated in 2010, I had already registered as a graduate engineer with IEEE Kenya. And quite fast, I was able to register as a professional engineer because I was quite focused. So you need to focus as an engineer. What do you want to be and what do you want your future is? And I'm happy ESA is trying to, help you in that when they're setting up this webinar on navigating career paths. Flexibility, I've talked about that. Of course, empathy is what makes us get into other people's shoes and appreciate suffering. If you wash engineer, water and sanitation, water health and sanitation engineer, you will really need to, will probably going to be in relief, NGO world, working towards relief and helping people in problems. So empathy becomes very important. And perspective, you must have perspective as an engineer. And then determination, you must have dogged perseverance, what I call dogged perseverance. Fight and fight until what you get. Because the 5-year engineering course is not easy. There's a course in the university as civil engineers, engineering students used to call theory of structures, but it was also called torture of students. I remember mechanical engineering students. There are some of the lecturers who are teaching them, I don't know, there's a course they really used to fear. It was on fire. Thermodynamics. I remember it's the thermodynamics. It was feared. I think they used to be given a cut, and all of them get 0. So you must grow determination and some thick skin, because out here you still do those hard projects, and so those difficult moments, they just thicken your skin and prepare you for outside. And so that then becomes my question for you as an engineer in the society. So the completion of my equation, obviously, as an equal sign. So I'll bring it to a close at that point so that then we can move on to Q&A. And thank you very much for listening to me, moderator.
Wow, Engineer Shammah, what can I say? That was to the point, and that was such a great way to start this session. Kudos to you. Thank you very much. I see David Maradona has posted a question. Colleague Zegon is also doing a thumbs up to you. Thank you very much for starting this session with such a great mood. Cheriot, I can also see you. So maybe we'll move our Q&A to the very end so that you don't waste so much time. Brian is also clapping. Thank you very much. So maybe you'll allow me, Engineer Shammah, will have the Q&A after all the speakers have spoken so that we can direct all questions to the respective speakers. Oscar Rombo will be the next speaker. So he's an experienced technology professional with a demonstrated history of working telecoms and the financial services industry. He's skilled in strategic leadership, innovation management, digital transformation, business process improvement, and change management. He has a strong information technology skill with sustainable enterprise. He has an MBA for Africa SEMBAA, focused in social enterprise from Colorado State University. Wow, this guy, I've seen his LinkedIn, guys. Maybe if those who want to go to his LinkedIn, it's quite the LinkedIn. Let me tell you, this guy has been to MIT, Colorado State University, George Washington University, King's College. Man, yeah, Oscar, I think you are really telling us how to strengthen our CVs. So over to you, Oscar Rombo.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you for the introduction. I think I'll start by sharing my presentation. I don't think I'll have my video on just to ensure we don't have bandwidth issues. So do I continue sharing, or IEEE Kenya will stop sharing? Thank you.
I think you can just, okay, perfect.
Yes. So just confirm when you can see my slides.
We can.
Okay, thank you. So I think to start, I'd like to thank the organizers of the event for inviting me to speak. I'd also like to recognize my fellow speakers, especially Engineer Shammah, for setting the pace. I think for me, lifelong learning and the top 10 skills really resonate with what I'm about to speak on. I'd also like to just recognize and appreciate all the participants and students who've joined in, listen to other speakers. So as you've heard, my name is Oscar Rombo. Initially, I had thought to speak about robotics and automation, but then as I did the slides, I thought, maybe I'm narrowing it down too much. So I changed tact a bit, and I'll talk about jobs of the future. I'll try and just relate robotics, automation, AI, all this fancy big...
Oscar,
yes.
Sorry, Oscar, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Maybe you can, your voice is quite low. Maybe you
can you hear me better?
Yeah, that's much better actually. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll talk about jobs of the future. And I was mentioning the big technologies, so we'll try and relate these technologies to industry. And also I'll try and show the students the approaches you could use to make yourself relevant for the future. But first, a brief about me. So from an education background, my first degree was in computer science at Moi University. Graduated in 2006. Joined Safaricom in 2007, a couple of more certifications and learnings between then. And in 2013, did a master's in business analysis from George Washington University. Again, as we move along, remember, lifelong learning. That's key here. Then in 2014, I had an interest in social entrepreneurship, so I did an MBA at Colorado State University. And this was an interesting one because I was interested in 3D printing. So my enterprise startup was to see how we could recycle plastics and use 3D printing to just create interesting products. So I'll talk a bit about that later. Then also an interest in IoT, so did some certification from King's College London in 2017. and the final one in 2019. So I joined MIT for a leadership course, just learning how to lead teams in innovation and management. From a career perspective, I joined Safaricom in 2007 as a graduate engineer. Then over a period of 10 years, worked in product development, basically just developing interesting products, but not eating people's bundles. I know that comes up a lot. Yeah, worked on interesting stuff. I think the main one I could highlight is when you walk in the streets or you drive in the streets of Nairobi and Mombasa, you'll see the cameras, and it was a police and Safaricom project. I was the lead solutions architect. So I'm happy I worked on something that makes the streets safer. Finally, I moved on to management role, so managing a team of business analysts, and finally managed a team of operation support system engineers. Then I left Safaricom, worked as a chief technology officer in a fintech called Mobile Financial Solutions for a year. Then joined my current company, Shujaz Inc., again a social enterprise where we work with the bottom of the pyramid businesses to just try and upscale them, and that's my current role. I have a couple of interests which I thought would be interesting, so I just sampled a few. So I'm interested in drones. So personally, I'm an amateur drone pilot. I try to understand the technology, but I also believe in experimentation. So my second point, other than lifelong learning, to engineers listening to me, experimentation is the new normal. You have to experiment. So it's a new technology, you've seen it, so what will you do to make you understand? So we'll talk about some approaches I've used personally, and maybe you could borrow. I'm also interested in 3D printing. So when I joined Colorado State University, my social enterprise was to recycle plastics and use 3D printing to make products. So yeah, I'm a 3D printing enthusiast. I have 2 3D printers at home. I make toys. So my daughter asks for a toy, I just look for a design online. Someone has designed it. If I can design it myself, I just design it and print it at home. So I do that kind of stuff. Again, experimentation is the new normal. I'm also a home automation enthusiast. So my house is semi-automated. I think this would be interesting to engineers listening to me. At Safaricom, I was the lead solutions architect for home fiber. So I made my house the lab, if that makes sense. Again, experimentation is the new normal. So as I was trying to automate the Safaricom home fiber processes, I'm doing it and I'm living the life. It makes you a better engineer, better scientist. So yeah, I'm also interested in telematics. So I gather data from my cars, try and analyze. I'm trying to see how I can do this over the GSM network, just have the car send data to a server, then I can analyze. Again, experimentation, big data, automation, AI. So I try and do these things in my space, in my environment, but again, it helps me learn. So yeah, my talk will be about inspiring engineers using my journey, using my experience in industry, trying to show you how you can mirror this across. It doesn't matter, you could be a civil engineer, an electrical engineer, a computer scientist, but as Engineer Shammah mentioned, if you have the engineering mindset and you have a structured approach to solving problems, then you're able to solve problems in any industry. So again, today's presentation in summary, we'll not talk about the boring side. We'll talk about the not so boring side. So the boring side is how things have been happening, but this has changed. So the not so boring side is how do you as a human take advantage of existing and emerging technologies to work more efficiently, to make your work more interesting, and to make your work more qualitative. So that's it in summary. So we're talking about the future of jobs. So what is influencing this future of jobs? I picked 3 key factors, I think, or I believe, influencing the future of jobs. The first one is organizational change. So companies are looking for new ways of doing things. new ways of working. We want to do things in different ways to make us more efficient. We should be able to make more money at the least cost. We should be able to take advantage of the most efficient existing technologies or emerging technologies. So that's the first point. The second point is society is changing. We're in the era of TikTok. So you move into TikTok and you have 10 million followers. So things move very fast. So if you're still on Instagram, TikTok has come and guys have moved on. So before you catch up, it's too late. So society is really changing and technology is also changing. Guys are talking about drones. If you look at the recent wars, I don't know if you follow the wars, I think Armenia and was it Kazakhstan? And in the recent fight between Israel and Hamas, there was a lot of technology being used. If you could just go back into the media and the news and see, you'll see a lot of interesting technology. So they call them kamikaze drones. So it's a drone with an explosive, but just think about it. So a drone with GPS and an explosive, that's a very lethal combination. But then what it means is that I can do what they call a surgical strike. So if I want to strike a house, I can strike a house with minimal collateral damage. So I'm just mentioning this to show you how before you blink, technology has changed. So as a student, there's the red marker. You are here. You're in the middle of all this. So what do you need to do, or what strategies would you use to ensure you're able to adapt? So the parting shot from this is your personal career strategies must adapt to these factors. So the first question is, do you have a personal career strategy? As you digest, let's look at a quote by Rupert Murdoch. The world is changing very fast. Big will not beat small anymore. It will be the fast beating the slow. So he's been a media mogul, owner, but he was very cognizant of the fact that media was being eaten up by social media. It's like, I think for me nowadays, I don't watch news. I just look at Twitter, look for the trending topics, and I already know what will be in the news. So you could be a big media house, but social media is very fast. Everybody has access, everybody can contribute. So the game has already changed. And you can see what has happened to our media houses. They've had to adapt. Live streaming on Twitter, live streaming on YouTube. So things have moved on so fast. So it doesn't matter who you are, how big you are, how much money you have. Things are moving very fast. So an example of big doesn't matter anymore. If you look into the 2014s, early 2014s, big companies were being driven by oil money. So you could find the IT or tech companies were just somewhere in between, but the big companies, the Shells, the Exxons, were leading in terms of market capitalization. But in just 5 years, technology took over. So this is a very good example of you're big, yes, you have the money, but tech is moving so fast, things are changing. You guys are moving to cloud computing, no longer have to build these huge data centers. I can just go and buy memory, CPU, and stuff online and move on. So tech took over, and this is a very good example of how in just a span of 5 years, the game changed from that perspective. The second example would be to look at the list of jobs I have on the screen. So the chief listening officer, Uber driver, driverless car engineer, a drone operator, YouTube content creator, RPA developer. RPA is robotic process automation, where you use software robots to just automate business processes. Sustainability manager, online community manager, telework manager, cloud computing specialist, a big data analyst. So someone is saying, can I be more audible? I don't know if it's my earpiece or...
I think on my side I can hear you. Maybe someone else can second me.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw a comment, so just checking. Okay, cool.
So hear him clearly, relatively clearly.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll just proceed then. So if you look at all these jobs, 10 to 12 years ago, none existed or was mainstream. Even if it existed, it was not mainstream. And we all know, like, if I take YouTube content creators, I think it's become mainstream now. And everybody is like, welcome to my channel and stuff like that. So yeah, that's become mainstream. But a few years ago, we didn't have this. Driverless car engineer. Driverless cars, I know they are not yet mainstream, but they are a big thing now. It's emerging. It's an emerging concept or technology. So this didn't exist. So if you look at the full list, then as a student, I would want to challenge you that, yes, you're an engineer, you go to class, you're going through the curriculum, you finish the course, but are you looking at the future? Because maybe what is relevant right now will be obsolete in 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years to come. So that's how I would want us to look at everything we'll be talking about. Don't focus on the now, focus on the future. So if you're taking a 5-year course, by the end of the 5 years, will what you have learned in class be relevant? Food for thought. So there's a reality we've talked about. Things are forming right now. In the future, they may not be relevant. But then the next question is, how do you get there? So as a student, you'll ask me, so guys are talking about AI. Drones are emerging. I go to weddings and I see drones. What opportunities are there for me as an engineer in such technologies? I think my point would be, it's about thinking differently. Do you want to be an engineer like everybody else, or an engineer who stands out? Another food for thought. So what do you do? My first proposal or advice would be, identify the opportunity. Be interested. Read. Go online. Subscribe to newsletters. I was a student member of IEEE during my time in campus. I also became a professional member when I started working. I remember there was the IEEE Spectrum magazine. Really, really, really got me to where I am today. I think my interest in drones, two specific technologies, my interests in drones and 3D printing came from IEEE Spectrum. So that's it. Identify the technology. What is the technology? Get interested. And in the information age, there's a lot of information. So you really don't have an excuse. You can always get this information. Then understand how much investment. If I'm experimenting, and Engineer Shammah talked about, can you design a circuit? How do I go about it? Are there kits or are there components I could maybe purchase online and try and assemble something, or invest some money and try and build this circuit? So that's, again, experimentation is the new normal. The second point is, we talked about a career curriculum. So I'll challenge everyone who's listening to me to have a career curriculum. What would you like? I know life is never a straight line. It may not happen the way you maybe plan it, but you always should have a plan, even for your life. So I challenge all students, build a career curriculum. And what are these steps you could use? One is identify potential skill sets. So if you're interested in, let's say, 3D printing or drones or artificial intelligence, what skill sets do you need? And you work towards them. You need to learn these skill sets because the industry will expect you to have them. And I give examples where I see it right now in maybe interviews where I'm looking for team members to do ABC, and we look for skill sets. And most of the time, I really don't care how you learned the skill. It could be YouTube University, but if you're good at it, that's it. That's all I need. You could have gone to sit in class. That's well and good. So long as you have the skill set and you're good at it, that's all that matters. Then once you identify the skill set, you should know what job opportunities this can offer you. You could be an entrepreneur, you could work for a company, but you need to understand what is the job that this skill set will allow me to do. Then the last step is start learning. You have to learn. There are no two ways about it. And I think even in industry, you discover there's even more learning than in school, because you meet new technologies, you need to solve problems faster, so you have to be on top of your game. I'll now dive into the first technology, which is cloud technology. So I picked just a few technologies which are mainstream, relevant right now, and are changing the way we do things. And you'll discover, being an IT person, my presentation is geared more towards IT technology, but I'll try and relate it to all aspects of engineering as much as I can. So what does cloud computing enable us to do? So it enables us to commoditize the data center. So traditionally, data centers where you come and build this big building, you put servers in it, then have connectivity to the data center, and then now people can access the servers. And this is how, even in my time at Safaricom as an engineer, this is how we used to work. So we invest in data centers, but that has changed. Instead of everybody investing in a data center, cloud computing has come. And I would also want us to just understand the cloud is just someone else's computer. I think that's the simplest way I explain the cloud to people. Someone has set up this computer, so I'm buying these compute resources from them. That's it. But they've done it in a structured manner with backup. And so engineers would understand. A civil engineer would be involved in building the structure to ensure even when it floods, the equipment doesn't flood. An electrical engineer would come in and build a power design for the data center to ensure there's backup in case maybe one source of power goes down. Then there'll be cooling and stuff like that. So I think all aspects of engineering would come in. But the world has changed from that. So nowadays, and you can see there's been like 55 billion revenue up to 2020. So companies have really invested to ensure you, as a person who's running a very small application, you don't need to invest in a data center. But then what does this mean? This means all of us, and when I say all of us, is the rest of us who are not building data centers, just need to adapt. And we need some skill sets to be able to take care of this new technology that is emerging. So creativity, problem solving, experimentation. Cloud ROI is the ability for you to just see what is the return on investment for a company when they use cloud as opposed to a data center. So if you look at all these skill sets, they cut across. It really isn't an IT kind of skill set. So it's something anybody can learn. But then this takes us to the job opportunities. Now we have cloud solution architects. So the cloud architect will tell you, you take this resource from a cloud 1, cloud 2, cloud 3, and you have an end-to-end solution. We have migration specialists. So this is someone who would look for a company who's running on what we call bare metal data center and now help them migrate their services to the cloud. For software developers or the IT people who are listening, cloud native developers. So these are guys who move away from the traditional way of building solutions to what we call cloud native approaches. So basically, they're just using already built functionality. So it's like a Lego box. If you know Lego, you're able to take piece 1, piece 2, piece 3, and build a solution. So they're just taking functionality 1, functionality 2 from the cloud and building a solution. And lastly, project management. In any aspect of engineering, it's always a project. And Engineer Shammah mentioned this clearly. So slowly with time, you will discover, even if you're a specialist engineer, it gets to a point, project management is very crucial, and you have to understand how to manage projects. So these are some of the few job opportunities that would come about when you look at cloud technology. So where do you start as a student? So I just challenge people to just go online. So Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and DigitalOcean offer free accounts. So go register for the free account and experiment. It could be, I think, 1 month, 2 months. I think it depends on the cloud provider, but experiment from there. You will be better than someone who has learned that cloud computing exists. They've not experimented. You could experiment and ensure you do a small project and stuff like that. So maybe if it's a class assignment and you need to build a solution, why not build it on the cloud? You'll be much better than someone who understands it exists but has not experimented. I'll move on to the next technology, which is drones. There's a company called DJI, a Chinese company, started I think around 15 years ago. And I think they've been at the forefront of democratizing this technology because they built commercial and low-cost available drones. So anybody can now buy a drone, an enterprise-grade drone, cheaply, and experiment or use the technology. And what does this enable? Aerial access to any location. I know we've all gone for weddings, events where we see photographers using drones to capture video and still images from the sky. So I think that's the most common. And in terms of investment, you'll find there was an estimate that by 2020, we'll have 7 million drones being sold. We have universities like University of Missouri having a journalism reporting course just focusing on aerial technology. Then we have companies like Amazon trialing out Amazon, I think DHL also, they're trialing out drone delivery. And close home, Rwanda are already actually delivering medical packages by drone to remote areas. So it's happening. And I think we had this Google, Facebook, internet drones. I think the Google one was trialed in Kenya in partnership with Telecom Kenya. So this is happening. Companies are investing in this technology. So again, the skill set you'd require to ensure you understand and are able to take advantage of this technology, creativity, experimentation, because the drone can fly up. So what you're using it for is where creativity comes in. And we'll look at these job opportunities in a short while. Problem solving, data collection and analysis. You're collecting a lot of data, a lot of photos, videos. So what are you using that data for? How do you analyze it to make sense? Aviation skills, you need to be able to fly the drone. Video skills, how do you take good video using the drone? So these are the skill sets you'd need to take advantage of this technology. So what are the job opportunities? The first one is in construction, inspecting your projects. I think the game has changed. I think you really can't have people climbing on top of buildings to take photos. That's too old school and too risky. And again, you don't get the best views. So drones have taken over. So and I've seen people do this, solar panel installations, just send a drone up, take photos, do inspections. That's in real estate. In agriculture, people are using drones to spray farms, to map out farms. So basically mapping solutions. Event security, you could have an event where you have drones in the sky just monitoring and you have someone sitting behind a screen just looking at the footage. So if you look at it, I don't know if you guys are seeing the opportunities. So maybe you're the engineer who's providing the solutions, or you're managing that solution on behalf of a client. Because you understand how drones work, they'll need to be maintained, they'll need to be upgraded with maybe more powerful cameras, they need to be made more powerful to fly higher up. So those are opportunities. Again, package delivery, we talked about news reporting, safety and first aid. So maybe someone has gone hiking and they've fallen off somewhere people can't reach, and maybe there's too much vegetation to send a plane. You could send a drone to sneak in between the trees and just have a look before you send a responder. So those are opportunities you could use drones for. And I think the last one is war. We talked about war. People are using them to now, I think war has changed. So instead of sending soldiers first, you send drones. Some of them are suicide drones. They already have explosives. Some of them are just for surveillance. So the game has changed. So the point is, as an engineer, let's now break down a drone. So we have the flying unit. So we have propellers and stuff like that. So a mechanical engineer could come in there. Then we have the software that flies the drone. So that's an IT guy, so a software developer. There's the chip that makes all this possible, an electrical engineer. So the drone flies up, but it's controlled by a controller, and the controller communicates with the drone via wireless technology. Again, an electrical engineer and also a mechanical engineer, you're managing the dials and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to break it down to show you that there are very many opportunities, and you could even come together and using all these skill sets, design your own drone, because we have open technologies. And I've seen guys in Dubai are even trying to build mobility drones to just fly people from one end to another. So the point here is, as a student, are you waiting to hear about drones, or are you making the effort to understand them now so that they enable your future? So how can you start? The first thing, maybe you could buy a drone. Yeah, again, fly it safely. The regulations you need to follow. You need to register with the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. Your drone needs to be given a number, just like a plane, a registration number rather. Then you need to have a pilot license, and I've just put in the web address of one of the companies that trains drone pilots. I think I'll be taking the course soon enough. So you need to have like a license to fly the drone, even if it's just for experimentation and stuff, because there are very many rules. You need to know the flight limit of the area you live in. Is it a flight path, so you can't collide with a plane? So there are very many things to do. So again, as an engineer, you need to understand, so what are the regulations around it? What are the ethical issues? You don't fly your drone over your neighbor's house just to spy on them. So there are very many things. So as an engineer, these are the ways you could start understanding these new technologies and take advantage of them. Let's talk about AI. So AI is artificial intelligence, rather. I know people throw it around loosely. Sometimes you could get confused and you're like, artificial intelligence ni nini? So basically, it's using a machine to process vast amounts of data, then do something with that data. So I talked about home automation, and I think it's the example here. So I use Amazon AI a lot in my automation. So Amazon have built the AI component they call Alexa. So Alexa is a conversational system you talk to, and it allows you to, give instructions, and things happen on the cloud. So I'm trying to show you also how these things relate. So you buy a component, you put it in the house, you talk to it, but then it relays this information to the cloud. And since there's a lot of computing power in the cloud, it's able to process very fast and do something about it. So companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, IBM, and Samsung have invested in such kind of conversational systems. Personally, I've worked with the Amazon Echo, which I use to automate the house. So basically, I tell it, Alexa, switch off the living room light. It's able to do that, switch off the bedroom light. I also have door sensors across the whole house. So it can tell me when the door is open. So I just see the time, and I'm able to know someone passed here at this time. I've also automated sprinklers, so I can tell it to power on my sprinklers. I've set a schedule, so it powers on the sprinklers at 8 p.m. at night, then waters my grass, then it's able to shut this down. So if you look at all these technologies, and what I've done is I've experimented. So I'm challenging all of us to experiment because of my interest in home automation. So I've experimented with now that's AI, then that's home automation. In one, so I'm able to solve problems. So that's one, creativity, problem solving. So I had a problem where I had to water my grass. So that's in a home setting. I've solved that problem. So to those who are listening to me as a student, why can't you even come up with a startup to automate such things for people at home? Because my next project is Alexa, open the gate, and the gate opens, or I use the phone to open the gate when I come close by, just over Wi-Fi. So there are very many opportunities. So as maybe an engineer, you design such gates, low-cost local solutions, and you're using components which are already mature, and you build them into a solution you could sell to people at home. Then data collection and analysis could collect all this data and tell me something about my house. The kitchen door is open 35% of the time in the day. So maybe you don't need to close it. As an example, I'm just kidding. But yeah, what information could we use with this data? Or you need a better door that doesn't slam all the time because it opens and slams all the time. I don't know. So that's where all these things come together. Are you able to build me a dashboard that shows me how my house operates on the phone? Because you have all this technology and they have sensors, they're connected to the internet. So why not? So I'm just giving examples of how this come together so that we see that it's not just IT, AI. So you could even build a door with a smart lock that I can open over Wi-Fi, and they exist already. So the people who build these modules, why can't you just maybe come and assemble them and also maybe build your own that is more efficient, works better? So what are the job opportunities? Legal issues come in. So I'm monitoring my home. Am I spying on anyone? Is it legally accepted? Is there a law I'm breaking? Then in testing, could be an AI test engineer. AI-enabled management. We have HR, HR functions monitoring people through AI. They take photos of workspaces. They monitor when people clock in. So again, they're using AI to just manage the office space. It could be a machine learning engineer, just using the data to ensure you build better systems. Robotics engineer, the actuators and the modules that these components use to work. That's a robotics engineer coming in to develop solutions. Computer vision engineers, when you're taking a photo and the computer is using that to give you some input. Because yeah, I've always thought of this, of building, because I have also, again, CCTV cameras around the whole house. So I want to fit this into my automation such that when I'm at the door opens because it can see it's me. That's computer vision. So maybe I use Microsoft computer vision APIs to just build a solution that checks my face. I've trained it to know my face or people in my house, then it opens the door. So you could be someone who builds that. Then a research scientist just researching into all these technologies and maybe building better ones or improving them. A product manager, when these technologies have been built, they need to be market ready. So you make them market ready to ensure they can meet consumer needs. Because just building a technology and it doesn't meet a need is kind of useless. Then you could be an AI engineer who's just now building the algorithms in the back to make them work. So yeah, these are just examples, but how do you start? I believe in experimentation. Just get a Google Echo. A Google Echo would be maybe 4 or 5K Kenya shillings, allows you access to Amazon APIs. The rest is what you can do after that is endless because you have access to the technologies, the capabilities. Now it's up to you to implement them and solve a solution, rather solve a problem. IoT. So if you look at all these things we've talked about, and this is why I thought the technologies are related. So AI powers the core of what makes the decisions. But the component that does the action is an IoT device. So if you break down Internet of Things, a thing in this concept is any device that has sensors or actuators, and then the Internet of comes in. The Internet of means this thing that has sensors or actuators has internet connectivity, either via Wi-Fi or GSM. So that's how you look at it. So what does this enable us to do? It enables us to connect or exchange data across disparate devices. So devices all over, but then you connect them and you're able to exchange data. So examples of this would be what we talked about in the home. So I have those sensors, that's an IoT device. Then I have, let's say, a camera, that's an IoT device. Then I have a sprinkler controller that controls my sprinklers. That's an IoT device. So what I'm doing is now I'm using AI, and we talked about the echo in the previous slide, to connect all these devices. Then I have a home automation solution. Let me repeat. So I have the AI device, which is the the Amazon Echo. Then I have IoT devices, which is my door sensor, my sprinkler control unit, and my CCTV cameras. Then I'm connecting them over the internet. So they are IoT devices. But then I'm using AI in the Amazon Echo to make decisions. So that's how it works. So what skill set would you need? Here it's hardware design. I need to design a device. I need to understand how actuators work, how sensors work. So that's hardware design. Machine learning, I'm able to understand that this sensor is capturing information, it's sending it somewhere. What do I do with that information? I need to analyze it. And this is where I use these algorithms to make some sense out of it. Then in security, these devices are connected to the internet. I need to understand how to secure them so that they're not hacked. So that nisikue niko hapa Kajiado, then someone in China is just opening my door. I'm like, what's happening? So I need to ensure it's secure. Then big data, just ensure you collect this data in a structured manner, and experimentation, just like what I'm doing. So, and I think in a period of 5 years, I've tried very many different devices. You find some don't work like expected. Some can be improved in certain way. So I think also in my work life, so with this experimentation, and this is the example I'm giving, when I worked on Safaricom home fiber, with my understanding of home automation, we were able to build better packages for users, because you find my data needs are not the same as someone who's just checking email. But how do you understand all this if you're not gathering some information or analyzing the data on this usage? So that's experimentation. And personally, I've seen it just help me understand these technologies a bit better. So a couple of opportunities available: installers. So you could be the guy who sets up these devices for people. So I've just given a home setting. The other setting would be in the office. I've seen offices struggle with switching AC on and off. But I know we have modules like what I'm using for my water pump. Yeah, because my water pump is connected to a module that connects to Wi-Fi. Then I'm able to switch it on and off on the phone or automate it with Alexa. So I've seen offices struggle with AC. So when you're setting up an AC system, then it could have that smart module in it and also allow the users to switch it on and off from wherever. So just as an example, then another opportunity would be just an installer for agriculture systems. You have sensors monitoring soil. Yeah. Like the next thing I want to do is put a rain sensor. You could put a rain sensor so that when there's rain, the sprinklers don't come up on their own. Right now I have to do it manually, but with my experimentation, I've seen I need to maybe have a sensor. It checks the level of rain. If it's below the threshold, then tells the sprinkler controller to fire up the sprinklers when the time comes. So that's the next thing I would want to do. So it's like a mini weather station for my house. Yeah. So think about it. There are very many things you could do. So you could design such a product. You could be the one just offering security designs, ensure people have firewalls, that their homes are not hacked. A research scientist, we talked about a project manager or a solutions architect who ensures you're able to put all these pieces, because there are different technologies, into one kind of technology. So how do you start? Again, for this, I think the first one is just get an Amazon Echo or Google Home unit. It gives you an entry level into now even building your own solutions. The other interesting one is explore iftt.com. IFTT stands for if this, then that. So if this, then that allows you to use an online solution, again, to just automate. It's something you could tell to check. I think the interesting one I've used is when my front door sensor sends me an alert, then it opens the CCTV app on my phone and shows me the front door video feed. I don't know if that makes sense. So if the front door is open, then open the CCTV app and show me the video camera for the front door. So yeah, just explore this. It's a way to get it gives you an entry level into automating things with IoT. I think the last one we are talking about today is 3D printing. Again, just out of my interests. So what is 3D printing? It allows you to make three-dimensional solid objects from a digital file. And this is interesting. I think it's very interesting, and I've learned a lot from this. I've been a mechanical engineer. Okay, I'll call myself a quack one for that. A YouTube mechanical engineer from just trying to understand 3D printing. So what I did is I bought a 3D printing kit. So basically they send you a kit with all the bolts and nuts and all the pieces together. So you assemble it yourself and you calibrate it. So because I wanted to learn, so I decided I'll not buy a fully assembled 3D printer. So this was in 2014, I think. So this helped me a lot to understand hardware design, 3D computer aided design, logical thinking, because you have to understand how things relate. Problem solving, yes. So things are not working, how do you solve them? Then again, how do you take a problem, design it into a 3D model, and ensure the printer is able to print it into a solution. I also learned rapid prototyping. So yeah, I took a lot of time, but these are the skill sets you need to operate such. So you can see this cuts across the whole spectrum of engineering. So we have the mechanical bit, we have the electrical, because I had a power unit. The power unit gets input into 40 volts, then the output is 12 volts. So we understand what needs to happen. So that's an electrical engineer. Then the 3D printer is controlled by software. So that's, again, software development. So as you can see, there are very many job opportunities in this space. But the way I want to talk about this is different. So 3D printing is a concept. So what I'm doing is called desktop 3D printing. I do it at home, but it's a way to start. But people have moved into commercial 3D printing. And as you can see, the meme there are 3D printing houses in 3 hours or 3 days. So they've built commercial enterprise grade 3D printers that take in concrete and cement as input and water, etc., and are able to output a house. So again, the point is, from this concept, and let's say as a civil engineer, are you a civil engineer who understands 3D printing and what the capabilities are for the future? Because maybe by the time you're finishing your course, this will be mainstream. So the guys will be like, if you don't understand 3D printing, I can't work with you. Or there will be an opportunity for consulting in 3D printing. Because I think this has opened for me opportunities. I 3D print toys. I think my daughter wakes up and she wants, I think, Paw Patrol. I printed it for her the other day. Although it takes long, maybe it takes the whole night to print. But yeah, I'm able to do such kind of things. I break a car part, I can't find it, so I design it and print it. So there are very many opportunities, design opportunities, mechanical engineering opportunities, product design, research, project management, software development in understanding this technology. So you should be the engineer who, when you finish your electrical or civil or production, mechanical engineering course, you understand this technology and how it relates to your job. Does it make your job more efficient? So how do you take advantage of it? So that's how I would want us to relate to this technology. So where to start? Buy a 3D printing kit. I think it costs me like 20K to get the kit, including tax, because I had to fight with KRA. They didn't understand why I'm shipping in bolts and nuts and I can get them in the local hardware. Yeah, so I had to make them understand what this was. 3D printing hubs. I know a few who have started. Maybe you have one in campus. And also, again, an opportunity. If it doesn't exist, why don't you be the one to start the 3D printing hub? Go in, understand the technology, then start a hub in campus or close by where students can access. Then you can check out thingiverse.com. I think they offer open source, free and paid 3D prints. So I get my prints from here. So people print and open source them, then we can just download and print. We've talked a lot about hardware. Now let's talk about software. This is a very new technology. which more or less is used for automation, so software automation, called robotic process automation. What it does is it enables a human to define tasks for a software robot to perform repetitively. So think about it this way. Whatever a human being can do sitting on a computer, a software application can do it. So if you're a software developer, I'm not saying this will replace you, but maybe it is already. So it's something to learn. So I would want all of us to maybe go online, just on YouTube and Google, check out RPA, or robotic process automation. So it allows you, for example, if you have different software applications, instead of struggling to share data between them, you have a robot. You just tell it, copy this, paste it here, open this. Then once you record that, it's able to do that repetitively. And this is really changing the game in software development. So again, the opportunities are become a process analyst, because you define the process to be automated, design the process, automate, then build a product around it. And you could also be the RPA developer who now writes the actual code. Because the thing is, if you have a process like data entry, where you have papers that come in, then you have to key in the data. What now people are doing is you put them in a scanner, they're scanned, then the robot just reads all of them. And think about computer vision. This is where AI is coming in. So with computer vision, it's able to do this very fast. So you could have a task that people used to do in 3 hours being done in 3 minutes or 30 seconds. So that's where the world is moving. So this is something to understand. So as an engineer, what this helps you do is, if you have a process that maybe, let's say you have someone sitting behind a computer, then they're controlling, let's say, some hardware in the back, you could automate this, and now you focus on ensuring the hardware works fine, and now get proper insights and analyze, maybe improve the process. So this is why we're saying robots are coming in to make us stop doing the repetitive work and do the more qualitative work. So how do we start understanding this kind of technology? One of the applications I use a lot is called UiPath. So I'd encourage all of us to go to uipath.com. They have like an application software called UiPath Studio. You could download this and just start doing simple automations, and now you can progress. They also have free training on what they call UiPath Academy. You'll see the link on the same page. You could just start from here and see how you start with simple tasks like reading an Excel file, getting data, doing something about it, and sending an email. Then now you move into the complex implementations. There's a lot more we could talk about, but yeah, again, time, relevance, autonomous vehicles. So are we just sitting and waiting for this technology to happen, or are we striving to understand? So it's a vehicle, it moves, it has moving parts, it has a battery, it needs to be powered. It has the software or the application that controls it. So as an engineer, this is an emerging technology. How can it be relevant to your profession? Because autonomous vehicles will need engineers to design them. They use maybe battery packs that need to be designed, maintained, installed. So are you making yourself relevant? Then we have virtual reality. This is where we sit in a space that really doesn't exist. So it's more like 3D modeling, but with an application that helps us understand maybe an environment that would be maybe high risk. So I've seen it more being used in war to simulate very intense situations for soldiers. And you could also use it, let's say a civil engineer, you could build a 3D virtual model of a house, so that when your client is coming in, you take them through the house virtually. It's not been built yet, but as an example, this is how it would look like. Then you have alternative energy, solar, hydrogen cells. So we know autonomous cars are coming. People are moving away from fossil fuels. So how do you, as an engineer, make yourself relevant in that space? So these are just some of the other technologies I could pick, just to show you that there's much more and learning doesn't stop. So quickly, because I know I'm running out of time, How do you keep up? Anything that can be disrupted will be disrupted. Have that at the back of your mind. Don't be comfortable. Read, learn, research. You can become technologically old very quickly. What is relevant today, tomorrow, that technology is gone. That's a phone, still works, but irrelevant, outdated. Move with the market. Don't be like BlackBerry. When Android came in, BlackBerry didn't move with the market. Now they were left behind. So understand where the market is going, move with it. Experiment. Your engineers experiment. New technology, you don't understand it, you want to understand it more, just experiment. Don't do what everybody else is doing. If you do the easy and simple stuff, then you'll be like everybody else. Do you want to be an engineer who stands out? Or do you want to be an engineer who's like everybody else? Thank you very much. I know I've taken more than my time, but I hope it was relevant. Back to you, Fiona.
Oh, thank you very much, Oscar. I think I should be calling you engineer. I think. Oh gosh, everyone is clapping and everyone is celebrating. Claire, I see you. Andre, I see you. Cheryl, I see you. Cynthia, I see you. Chariot, I see you. Okay, at this point, Kithinji, Ramya, I see all of you. Lead, I see you. Daddy's. Okay, you're all clapping. I see everyone. Masika, Nyokabi, Sam, 20K. Okay, that's enough. So, thank you very much. Oscar, that was great, great work. I mean, I feel I should automate. I should not graduate until I've automated something in this house, in this home I'm living in. Thank you. That was very good about the sprinkler and your future projections. I mean, I'm wondering, and you did computer science, as in, it's a great challenge to all of us. Now I move on to the next speaker. So, unfortunately, Martha will not be able to join us because she was having an emergency. But the person who's going to take her place, and he's going to take us through what he has prepared for us, is none other than Kithinji Muriungi. He's a graduate electrical engineer. So what I'm looking at his profile on LinkedIn, and wow, there's so much. There's really so much startup accelerator program. He's been in IBM. He's also been an IBM ambassador. He's worked in IBM. I think that's where I met him. He's an ardent IEEE fan, a follower, a volunteer. I mean, he's also won the Larry Ellison Award. I hope I've not butchered that award, how it's pronounced. But for those who are in IEEE, that is a very, very big award. He's traveled so much. I personally look up to Kithinji because I think 2 years or 3 years ago, he challenged me when I had gone for a workshop at IBM. He challenged me so much, and he asked me, you cannot only just be reading in engineering, you have to explore your horizons, you have to maximize on your opportunities. So without further much ado, I would like to introduce Kithinji Muriungi. Kithinji, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fiona. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I think this is just a notice before even I start the session. I have my daughter around, so she might be popping in and out anytime. So in case of any disturbance, please bear with me. It's on a weekend. And also, I think, thank you also for at least accepting me to come in a short time because I've just been notified, I think, 8 minutes or 10 minutes before time. So I was just seated somewhere and then making inquiries how the event is supposed to happen. And then Child too told me she was thinking that she would carry herself to the event, but unfortunately she wasn't able to. So I had to at least step in and do a thing or two. But I'm glad because most of the things that I had planned to talk about, Engineer Shammah and Rombo, they have really digged deep into that, and I think it's a really nice way for them to start talking, and then so for me to come in, it's just to summarize, or rather to sum up. Because I think also Charles was told me she was supposed to talk about life as a young professional, and that's what I will be sharing with you. And in case of anything, maybe I share something as I'm talking. Please, if you have a question or a concern, you can just pose me, raise your hand, or maybe drop it on the chat, and we can respond to it accordingly so that no one is left behind. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'll not be, I don't have ready-made slides, but I think I'll just give a reflection of life as a young professional. To start with, my name is Kithinji Muriungi. Currently, I'm the Young Professional Chair in Kenyan section, and Child 2 serves as the publicity lead, or rather branding lead in IEEE Young Professionals. I'm very happy to hear that Rombo was an IEEE member, and I hope he still is, because it's really awesome to, before you talk as the chair of an organization, you hear someone saying how important the IEEE has been to him, and how IEEE has really drove him into two of the key technologies, that is 3D printing and drone technologies. I think that solidifies my discussion as an IEEE chair, and also as I share, I think I'm able to share, and even the participants can really resonate to what is these IEEE young professionals, and how and why is it important. I think that is really great to hear from you, Rombo. Apart from being an IEEE Young Professional Chair locally, I also serve in two great positions in the region. One as a IEEE Action for Industry member in IEEE Region 8. So for those ones who don't know what IEEE Region 8 is, it's a combination of Africa, Middle East, and Europe. So I serve in that committee, where we serve with the global, or rather the regional leaders. In addition, I serve in IEEE Photonic Society as a global strategy representative. So in this global strategy representative, I serve in
Hello. Have we lost him? Can someone kindly confirm if they can hear him?
I can't hear him. I was thinking the same thing.
Okay, let's just give him 5 minutes. Okay. Technology sometimes can be very disappointing. Let's just give him some time to sort out the technical problems. Meanwhile, Clinton, are you here? Maybe you can talk about Engineering Students Association as we wait for Kithinji. Clinton? Hello?
Yes, Fiona.
Oh, perfect. Maybe so Clinton is the vice chair of Engineering Students Association. So I remember I had called him earlier to say something before we begin. So maybe he can just say something small. Then we see if Kithinji is still around, and then maybe we can go to Q&A.
Okay, thank you very much, Fiona. So for those who don't know me, I'm called Clinton Ogweno. Majority know me as Sir Clinton. So I'm the current ESA vice chairperson. And ESA in full is Engineering Student Association. I think my chair lady, Isabella Oyoo. Isabella talked earlier and she elaborated, she invited the guest. So we are a team of 8 guys. I can see my publicity secretary is also with us, Cheriot, and also the members, Secretary General Rama, and our finance secretary who is also hosting us, Fiona, Nkatha, Mugambi. We have a team of 8 guys, and one of the things that ESA do as an association to impact or to sharpen students for the future in terms of professionalism skills. And this is one of the events that we normally organize as a HESA. And we also organize, recently we had our International Engineering Conference. I think Engineer Shammah talked about it. And we're also planning great things for Engineering Student Association. I do hope as we continue, we shall learn more and engage. And we have already learned a lot this session. And I think, Fiona, is there anything else I need to say?
I think
Fiona?
that is it. Thank you very much.
So.
Okay. So I've just spoken to Kithinji. His internet just dropped, unfortunately. I don't know. His internet just dropped and he's just called. He's telling me he's reconnecting right away. So let's just be patient with him. Meanwhile, as he's reconnecting, thank you very much, Sir Clinton. He's our vice chair. Thank you for addressing us. I remember I had called him earlier and he wasn't able to respond at that time. He was doing a lot of mobilization. So I think it had passed him. So as Kithinji is trying to reconnect, so we have the questions which were sent. We have David Maradona. We had we had David Maradona. So I will ask you maybe even though those who have more questions to just post them right now. So maybe David Maradona, you can unmute yourself and then maybe ask your question to Engineer.
Hello.
Oh, you're back. Perfect.
I'm really sorry. I think I've been having a very unstable internet connection for the last 1 week. I think you could have noticed I've been dropping often, but I hope at least it will be stable and respect us until we finish this conversation. So just just a quick pick from where I left. I joined MOI at 2013, graduated in 2019. And I think within that 6-year period that I was in MOI, I did quite a lot. And if there is something, I think I can say that whatever I did as a student, I'm really proud of it because when Rombo talks about experimentation, I think I really understand. And when you talk about home lab, I really understand, because my room in campus was a lab, and it's through that I'm where I am today. So before then, I did my internship at Safaricom, and after that, I joined. After immediately coming out of campus, I joined Safaricom Alpha. That was by then the Innovation Center of Safaricom. I left there, joined IBM as an intern for 6 months. Left IBM when my contract ended, and I started startup. It has not peaked so well, but I thank God I've done a simple project, project. And also I had a client that I'm still working on him, and hoping at least the solution that I'm hoping to provide will really be a breakthrough to me as well as to the rest of the team. In addition to that, I was also nominated among the researchers, or rather engineers, that were to work on a fit-for-purpose device in partnership with ICTA, that is ICT Authority, and other institutions. And I think the last 1 month, I've been in Konza. I think everybody knows, or rather everybody has heard about Konza Smart City. And I joined there as a systems engineer, working in the smart city as well as the data center in Konza. And I think when Rombo was talking about the future technologies, I really got to a point where I felt like you are just gone sent to today's presentation. Because at some point, maybe I could not have attended this session, but to me, I've learned. I'm sharing as a speaker, but I have learned a lot. And I could really wish the students who are here could have really captured what Rombo was saying. Because most of us, when we go to school, we learn things, the basic fundamental sciences or engineering. But when you come out, whatever you end up working on, it's something that you have never been taught in class, but of course the fundamentals are there. Or else a role that is not even, doesn't even exist. Like smart city, to me, that is a new role. I'm interested, of course, in such technologies, but when you come into that kind of a space, you realize you really need to do a lot, and you really need to push yourself beyond the limits, because whatever you are working on, it's something that you don't have a reference elsewhere. So that is just my journey up to the point I'm in. Now, diving deep into what I was supposed to share today, in regard to what Child 2 requested me to do, life as a young professional, I was to mention 5 or 7 key points as a student, as you hope to join the young professional world, I don't know who. Okay, I'm back. So it will really play a very big role in how you grow your career. And the first one, I think, is lifelong learning. I will not touch on that because the two speakers have expounded them in depth. And then I think there is no way we could end up insisting how skills are important. I think Fiona knows this from me, but I always kept on telling her, skills. You really need to get a good grade, be the best, but ensure you have skills. And I think Rombo has brought them clearly, and he's not just talking about AI. I did this, and this. He's talking about this is computer vision, and this is how I have used it. This is machine learning. This is how I have used it. This is IoT. This is how I have used it. And trust you me, I think that is the basic principle of what makes you a young professional engineer outside here. And I've gone through 3 roles, but among all these 3 roles, there is no single role that people have asked me of my certificate, because most of them know I graduated with engineering. That is enough. But the question has always been, what are you bringing on the table? Even at the time now you are doing the interview, that is the simple question you are being asked. We know Fiona, definitely, by the virtue of knowing Fiona as an electrical and electronics engineering student, and of course I will see your picture in the next few months or years, then I will confirm that Fiona has graduated. That's okay. But when I will be interviewing Fiona, I'll be now interested to know, Fiona, what are you bringing on the table? Because I already know Fiona as an engineering graduate. And I think skills, there's nothing more, and there's nothing which gives a young professional, or rather a graduate, confidence to speak and confidence to share than knowing you are skillful and your competency in something. In addition to that, I think Rombo, Engineer Shammah mentioned something or of making yourself a relevant engineer, but Rombo expounded it further. I had just pointed it out as a relevant engineer, or rather making whatever you learn applicable. And I think I'll just be echoing what Rombo has been sharing with us. So when Rombo talks about being a drone enthusiast, I really felt, I normally tell my wife, whenever someone mentions about drones, I feel like I feel a sharp pinch. It's like someone is tickling me, because I don't know, I have a thing with drones, and these really forced me, at the time I was in 4th year and 5th year, forced me to do a project in drone. So many friends of mine told me it was not really worth it, because people are doing projects worth 500 shillings, or rather 1,000. But for you, you are investing in a project worth 80,000, 70,000, 60, 50,000. It was not really worth it. And on top of that, you are falling into traps of being in conflict with the KCAA, the government, the case, the guys at the airport. When I ordered the frames, and the frames were held there for almost 6 months. So everybody saw me as a this stupid student, because bro, you are doing something that is not really worth it. How many marks do you want? Do you want 101? Yeah? Some of us just want 90 or 80 or 70. How many marks do you want so that you can go to that extent of doing an extraordinary project? Do you want 101 marks? But I think today I always smile when I hear someone mentioning about drones, because I through the project I got certificate from KCAA. I got approval from KDF, Kenya Defense Forces. I got approval from Kenya Intelligence Services. So to me, that is exactly what I wanted, because I know the next time I'm doing such a research, I will not really have tough times, because I have the first certificate, and now when I need the second certificate, at least it can really make sense. And this to me is what really means by being relevant to whatever you do. Push harder, because at some point it will not make sense, but tomorrow it will come in handy, and at some point maybe you will not even realize how dots, how everything connects slowly. And this also comes into the point where I have co-authored the second paper with friends of mine, I think Chris, Ben Salsi, and others. And in addition to another guy in Cadet. And this paper, we will be presenting it also in August. So to me, this is something that I started 2-3 years ago. I'm still carrying it on with it. I have a prototype in my home. I normally look at it here and there, work on some mechanism. So that kind of thinking is what really keeps that fire burning. Because for you to remain relevant, for you as an engineer, so many people will say engineers are experimental and are hands-on people, are people who really take science and then put it into practice, make that equation work, make that PID work. When that PID works, especially in a control setting, then you are happy because you can see something working. Another thing, I think this will just be my third or rather fourth point, is in regard to soft skills, and Engineer Shammah really touched them so well, and he had to go deeper into skills that are needed and all that. And unfortunately, among the top 10 skills, there was nowhere we saw electrical engineering, or rather electronics engineering, or civil engineering, or mechanical engineering. What this tells us is that in future, it's not all about technical skills. And I think when someone says soft skills are important, if there is a word like that, Fiona, I know you're good in English, but please don't roast me now. Hard skills are important, but soft skills are important. So what I mean here is, if today you want to become a superstar AI expert, trust you me, you only need 3 to 6 months and you are good to go. 3 months is to do a certification, or rather go and explore that technology as much as you can within 3 months. The next 1 month, focus on a project. When you're doing that project, you will now learn things that are outside the scope that you had learned. In the next maybe 1 month, you will do something to do with engaging the experts and trying to understand the broader applications. Within 6 months, you are able to stand in front of people and even have a conversation with an expert. If it's AI or deep learning, you can have a conversation with an expert and exchange words. And when an expert challenges you, you can even throw a punch back and challenge the experts. So that is technical hard skills. And that's why you will hear engineers like Shammah, who have gotten that revelation. I will call it revelation. They understand hard skills are easily learned, but soft skills are very hard to learn. Why? Most of these skills, like presentation skills, you cannot just go and read in a book and then say, I'm a good presenter. No, trust you me, things like shyness, courage, self-esteem. I will not come here and lecture over self-esteem even for 2 months and assume that someone has really understood what self-esteem is. Most of these things comes through practice. Maybe you are good at presenting in a forum of 50 people. When you are given 10,000 people and all of them are looking at you in that very huge auditorium, can you present, or rather can you do that presentation in a span of, let's say, 2 minutes? Can you move from here to Australia just to go and make a 5 minutes presentation? Can you learn that? Can you go and enroll in an online class on how to make a presentation in a room of 10,000 people? That is the core thing, that soft skills are really soft are really soft as we see them, but when learning them, or rather when as absorbing them into our lifestyle, they are really hard. And so many people can attest to this. You can be the brightest in your class, but when you are told to maybe explain a simple concept, yes, you know it, but you cannot explain. Why? You have the hard skills, you can do it, you can maybe make the system work, But when you are told now, go to the boardroom and explain how this system works, then it means you cannot do that. And that is one key area that as a student, you really need to polish. And I think Fiona, Chris, and the rest of the student leaders here have really taken this opportunity, because when Fiona, you are moderating this session, trust you me, you may think this is just an ordinary thing, but you will come out of campus in 1 or 2 years. You will join us here out, but when you will be in companies, you will also realize you have some directors who cannot moderate a session simply the way you are doing it. So this is just simple soft skill, but for you, you normally see it as just an ordinary thing. But to even very high profile people, they cannot do it as you are doing it at this point. So as a student, you really need to cultivate this. And I think I cannot emphasize it further than the way I've said it. If you want to become a drone expert today, all you need to do is get those prototypes, sit down within 3 months, go through the 6D kind of understanding of the control systems, go back into testing, and then start programming, whatever language, whatever chip you want to use. And if you're using Arduino, then that will be a very simple way to doing your prototyping. And within 6, or rather less than even 6, to some it can go even within 1 month, you are an expert and a very renowned expert in drone area. That is how simple technical skills are in absorbing them. But soft skills, you really need to put more energy, more effort, and also even mirror your weaknesses so that you can bring them on board. If it's a technical skills you are learning, and maybe you are someone who is very visual, so for you, you will just go into YouTube, watch those videos, go through pictures, and you're good. If you are someone who is PDF kind of a guy, who is PDF oriented, when you get a book, you can peruse through 5,000 pages. And when you are done with that book, you are really good in that concept. So that is how significant soft skills are. I had to spend some time on that point so that at least we get to understand how important. And when people say technical skills are important, but soft skills are important, that is exactly what they mean. Another point I wanted to put across is in regard to, this is the second last, and then I've reserved the last point where I will just give examples so that at least we get to understand. The second last point is financials, or rather money. At the time I was in school, there is this quote where people say money is not everything, or rather money doesn't matter. So you will hear like what engineer Rombo is talking about. Engineer Rombo is talking about buying things, making an home lab, and then you realize at the time I was in school, I had invested almost, if not more than, almost 200K. But I know it was over 150,000 in my equipments and instruments that I had in my room. Let's talk of Arduino, all varieties, from the simplest version to the complex one. Let's talk of all these the multimeters, all the sensors, I had them. So such kind of investments needs money. And trust you me, I know students who are passionate about these things, but unfortunately, they don't know, they don't have money. And if you are someone like me, where you don't go to your parents and ask them, tell them I need 10,000 so that I can buy Arduino kit, then you really need to know how to commercialize your skill. I'll just give an example. I have a very close friend of mine from Moi, Chris and Ben Salsi. Ben Salsi started doing Android programming right from even before he joined campus. So from that time he joined campus, he could get gigs. Do this app, 25,000. Do this job, 100,000. Do this job, whatever the amount he was being paid. So with that kind of commercialization of the skill that Ben has been doing from the time he was in first year, I know even if something comes up and he is told you need to go to Nairobi, he doesn't worry. He will just travel and then come, maybe attend a 3-hour session and then go back. So I'm using him as an example so that at least we can understand why money is important even at the time you are a student. And this was similar to my case. Most of the time as an IEEE volunteer, I could use my money to maybe come from Moi and go to maybe Kabarak, or maybe go to KU or Riara and attend a session. That is just 1-day session and then come back. Most of these things needs money. And if you are a student and your parents, or rather your guardian or whoever is supporting you is not reached to that point, maybe to support you, you really need to understand how to commercialize your simple skills that you have. Do you have maybe design skills? Then get in touch with consultants like Engineer Shammah. Ask them, engineer, do you have maybe a job that you can subcontract me to do that design for you? Trust you me, he will not maybe give you 100,000 gig, but he can tell you, I will just give you this and then observe as you do. He may give you something small, but trust you me, that thing goes a little further, or even goes further into making you at least understand how to make something out of the skills that you have. And as you build on that, then it becomes very easy for you, even at the time you are joining the industry. Yes, Fiona, I can see I'm out of time, but bear with me, at least I wind up on this. So, so for that point of money and financials, I think as engineers, we tend to focus on skills alone, but you end up not reaching your potential because maybe you get an opportunity to go and present your project somewhere. But unfortunately, you don't have a passport, you don't have a visa, or rather even getting that 25,000 to come to Nairobi, either from maybe Kisumu or somewhere, and come and do your processes, it becomes very hard. And your parents cannot support you in that maybe manner. So as a student, you also need to know, at least don't go to the extent of maybe focusing so much into that and maybe forgetting your core business in school. But if you can capitalize on your skills or even your talents, if maybe you are a good video editing designer, or even you are good in image processing kind of software, you can do something, because such stuff, you do them effortlessly because it's your hobby, it's your talent, it's your gift. Then you can capitalize on that, and the few coins you get, you can put into your project. These will go back to the point where Rombo was saying he has a lab at home. I had a lab at school, and I have a lab even at the place where I am right now. And such things need money. You cannot experiment without money. And trust you me, in a software world you can, but in an engineering setting where you need hardware equipments, you cannot. The last point that I would like to talk about is about networking. As a student who is looking into joining the professional world, or rather graduate world, I don't know how to put it, but your network is really important. Your network is really important. I'm not talking about the kujuana thing. I'm not talking about just someone knowing you as Fiona Mugambi. I'm not talking of someone just knowing you as Chris Muremi. I'm talking about someone who can go into a boardroom and say, I know David Maradona, and if you give that person a job, then I can bet on him that he will deliver. That's the kind of network I'm talking about. The first internship I got from IBM, I got it through a referral. And I think Engineer Shammah and Rombo will attest to this. If Engineer Rombo, if Engineer Shammah wants to hire someone, it's very easy for him to go to someone and then tell him, give me a name or rather refer someone to me. And then that person will tell you things that are not in a CV. In a 3-page CV, you cannot really describe who you are. But if you ask me about Fiona, I can tell you something that are not in her CV. If you ask me about Chris or someone else, I can tell you something that is not in his CV. So that's how important your networks are. And as you purpose to come out, what the chairperson of ESA was talking about, they have graduates who are planning to go out. Kindly put your networks closer. Put your networks closer. Have a very rich network. Have people closer to you, people who can say, I know Elisha Onyando. And truly, Elisha Onyando is he did electrical and electronics, but I know he has very great skills in machine learning. And I know Elisha, if you want someone to do something to do with that area, I think he really suits in that space. That is what network is. The second engagement I got with ICTA, it was also through referral. And the third one, at the moment I'm in Konza, the kind of interaction, the kind of interview I did, I went into an interview, but when I joined, it was an online interview first. The first minute to switch on the Zoom, I met a person that is a current boss to the project that I was in. I didn't know how that person was connected to the kind of interview I was doing, but later I come to realize is the project lead in that project. Additionally, I met my school dean in the same environment that I was in. So this is someone I've interacted, one person I've interacted with in academia area, the other person I've interacted with him in a project outside. And that's how your networks are. In an engineering space, engineer Shammah and Rombo here, they will tell you, this space is very small because we don't have, we are not living in a countries like Asia, China, India, or US. We are in a very small country with very few engineers. And that community, when you go around maybe in a span of 2-3 years, you'll realize you know quite a lot together, or maybe you have interacted with him in a certain conference somewhere. So that's how important your networks are. And never burn bridges. I will put this in a Swahili. Maybe it will resonate with the student very much. When we are in school, there are those students wenye tulikuwa tunaona they are just wale don't care. Those students, they could just come to class, do whatever they want, but they were really passionate about something. Maybe they were just running their own businesses or companies outside. So you realize, well, maybe uko focused na vitu zako, but that student is really building networks outside there. And by the time you are outside here for within 5 years, that student has a $1 million kind of a company. And he may need an automation engineer. And of course, you will have to work for that student. Of course, to that guy mwenye unaona, he was not focused. But to him, he was focused because he was doing things that was really of significant to him. And hata ukiwa shule, don't despise anyone. Don't despise anyone. You don't know whom you are rolling with, especially in a school setting. Fiona today
Oh no, have we just lost him again? Can someone please confirm if they can hear me, or it's the internet on my side?
Yeah, he's. I can't hear him.
Okay. So if you can at least try to make more connections and try to build more bridges. I'm talking about building networks that really matter. And when those networks, you come out of school, you realize they are really important. So I think that is just what I wanted to share with you. I'm hoping at least I've been able to touch a thing or two in what Martha was to share with all of us. But more importantly, please build your networks if possible. Become a global citizen. Join a global community and be relevant. Whatever you do it with passion, but also remember, remain relevant in whatever space that you are in. That's all from me, Fiona. If anybody has a question in regard to IEEE Young Professionals, I think I'll be glad to answer. And I hope I've shared something of importance. And I look forward to having a very strong engineers, very strong graduates, and very strong young professionals as we await you to join the other side of life. Bye-bye. Back to you, Fiona.
Oh gosh, Kithinji, thank you very much. You're always a passionate speaker, man. Like, oh yeah, Chris is clapping, Tony Blair, Ramla, Sydney Joshua, Oscar is clapping, Gennaro, Lynn Mutuku. Oh man, Claire, Cheryl, Faith. Yeah, man, you're such a passionate speaker, and I think I really admire that because it's very charismatic. It's something when someone speaks, you want someone to just want to hear more and to get more, and it's something I really admire so much about you. So thank you so much, Kithinji, for your passion, for your zeal, for telling us how we should, just always be out there. So I know we are running out of time. We only have like 10 minutes. So I'm trying to, so I will ask, we are going to have a Q&A session, a brief Q&A session. Yeah, even Simba is clapping. The Elisha you mentioned, he's also clapping, and he's told me to tell you he's happy you mentioned his name. So now we're going to the Q&A session. So I will briefly just read out the questions. I would have appreciated it, the guys who asked the questions, to kindly just unmute yourself. Gishari, just unmute them so that they can ask them questions themselves, so that they can present themselves, because they understand their questions much better than we do. So I think we had Maradona. Kindly, is it Maradona? Yeah, David Maradona. I'm not sure if that's your real name, but it's a good name. David Maradona, thanks. Just kindly unmute and then ask your question.
So much for this opportunity. And yesterday when I saw this post for this session, I wasn't happy about the time, but right now I'm very, very happy about what the panel has presented. So my question is, the first question was about intellectual property rights. You'll realize that many students have ideas, but out here, the investors are like sharks. So how is the process of getting the international intellectual property rights, and how much does it cost in Kenya? Because last time I did a research, I couldn't get the right quotation of the price. And my second question was to Mr. Oscar. I wanted to find out about their plan concerning 3D homes, and if they would consider recycling plastic waste to use it as the raw material for 3D houses in Kenya. Thank you.
don't know if I can answer the 3D one.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so on 3D printing, I think what I did was, for me, was a POC and just understanding the technology. So I've not commercialized it yet, but I've seen other people do it, and also they're not doing it fully commercial yet. So the reason I talked about it, because what I do at home is I use a filament called polylactic acid, PLA. My startup idea was to recycle the normal plastic, mafuta, the ones we use in the house. So I did it to an extent, but I really, my approach wasn't really working the way I expected, so I dropped it. So the reason I raised it in this talk is I wanted to give you ideas of what other people are doing, and I would say it's an idea, so it's something you could even do as a business. So I have not done it personally, but I'm looking at trends and I'm seeing what people are doing, printing houses in 3 days as opposed to weeks, and building houses in months. So yeah, why don't you do it? I think that's the challenge I'll throw to you.
Thank you for that. David, I hope you've been answered. David?
Yes, I'm satisfied with the answer, and I'm looking forward to being a startup in that venture.
Oh, perfect. That's nice. So Brian, kindly unmute yourself.
Sorry, Fiona, there was one on, sorry, Fiona, there was one on intellectual property. I don't know if I can give a comment.
Sure, why not?
Yes, so I'll just give my experience working in product development at Safaricom, and I think this is very relevant to students and other people who have ideas. So what I would advise anyone is, don't ever go to a corporate or an established entity with an idea. They will spin off the idea, and that will be the end of it for you, because they have the muscle and all that. So what I usually advise people is this: you have an idea, build it into a product, or even try and get, I know sometimes some of them may be difficult to build because maybe of the resources required, but if you can get to the level where you're talking to someone with a prototype, and then when now you have the prototype is when you start the process of, so there are ways to look at it. One, you could register copyright names if it's a name, then trademark something where relevant, so that by the time you're going to talk to them, you have some evidence that this originated from you. That's one. Secondly, also when you're talking to them, ensure maybe you go to a lawyer and have like a non-disclosure agreement that really stipulates what you have laid out. So by the time you're meeting them, you're legally covered. Because I see some people go to a corporate, then the corporate already covered themselves with an NDA, and you find someone who's coming to them with an idea, doesn't really even read the non-disclosure agreement. So already you're at a disadvantage. So that's the advice I would give to all of us as students, or even if you're running a startup and you want to talk to such a big corporate. Don't go to them blindly, because then they'll shortchange you. I've seen this happen. Thank
you. Fiona, maybe I can add on something.
Okay.
Hello, Fiona, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe an additional point to what Rombo has said is also remember, at some point you may think your idea is very unique, only to go out and start developing it and realize there is quite some similar ideas out there. So I think my take would be, when you think of something and you think it's something that is really significant, I think the earlier you start, the better, because at some point I think IP experts will tell you they look at who was the first one to come up with. So you may have an idea and then maybe put it into your computer for 3, 4, 10 months. Within that time, maybe someone you will just share it somewhere or give an hint somewhere. And trust you me, engineers are very creative people, and I just need to get an hint of what you are building, and someone can reverse engineer it very fast. So at some point, when you have something, build it very fast and strive at least to make sure you have something being the first one, because when you are the first one to do it, or even to file that petition with the patents body, then at least you have a proof somewhere. And even when you go sharing it outside and someone does something closer to that, then you can go back and legally have at least something to follow up with, because you are the first one to do to file it somewhere legally, and also maybe develop it. So that is point number one. Point number two is at some point you will realize most of these ideas we think they are novel, and hold them for maybe a span of at the time you are in first year or second year or third year, you say I will develop this when I comes out of campus, only to realize by the time you are out of campus, you go outside the street and you find someone as something similar to what you are building, and that thing can really kill your morale, and even makes you not to start. So also apart from starting fast, also make sure you have a mechanism. You have a mechanism at least to have it now than say later, because that kind of waiting, people have ideas. You can see something like Uber. We have a million ideas that have generated through that, and maybe we have students who had built similar apps, but they are still carrying them into their computers because they didn't want to maybe commercialize them or put them out there. So right now they can't even try, but that thing will just die into their computer. So that's just my take into that. Yeah. Back to you, Fiona.
Thank you, Kithinji. So I hope you answered, Marathon. I hope you answered. Brian, kindly unmute. You're up next. Brian, is Brian there? Okay. Brian, maybe Gisheru, maybe you can allow people to just unmute. Maybe they're trying to unmute. Okay.
Everyone has permission to unmute themselves. I haven't restricted anyone. So whoever wants to raise anything, feel free. Okay, once you've been asked to.
Okay. So then I think maybe Brian dropped off the call. So meet Hirani. Kindly unmute.
Hello. My question was to Mr. Oscar. When he was presenting the slide where he mentioned that there was someone that was able to print a house within 3 hours using the 3D printer. So the question was that normal structural engineers usually use concrete that usually takes around 7 days to mature to 17% of its strength. It usually takes around 7 days. So the person who designed that 3D house in just 3 hours, did he use the same concrete or something? Was a different material being used, or does that doesn't it have a lower strength as compared to the one that is done manually, that takes even longer? Was that a legit house? Was that an approved house by an engineer, or was it? That's what the question that I wanted to ask. Was it a legit, an approved house by an official engineer?
Thank you for the question. I would not purport to be an engineer. I think I was trying to send a link. I've sent the wrong link. I'm trying to get a link to there are a couple of people who've done this. So the first thing, I think from what I understand, they use something called fast setting. I don't know if it's fast setting concrete or what. I really don't understand the concept very well. But what they're using is still experimental. And to my earlier point is it's not yet fully commercial. So you find these people, some of them are trying to POC, and I think it would be good to go and look at the results because yes, they've done the printing in 3 hours or 3 days, but at the end of it all, did the house cure properly? Did it have some structural deformities that need to be looked into? Because I know most of them are still experimental, and experimental in the sense that building a 3D machine, because so long as you can get your material into the 3D printer, people use chocolate, people use plastic, other people use metal, so melted metal, then it sets as you print. So I think for the house, it was experimental. I'll try and share the link in the chat. I think I've shared the wrong link. Then it's something we can learn on and just try and see if they did any follow-up release to show what really happened. But I know they try and use fast setting materials. But now the rest of the questions maybe I think can be looked
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is Engineer Shammah here? Maybe you can comment on that.
Hi, Fiona. You want me to comment on?
Yes, the question on there was a question about the concrete, something about, yeah.
All right. Okay. I am not an authority on 3D printing, especially on buildings. I've read I've read a few articles on on buildings that have been done using 3D printing. It is still very exploratory and a rudimentary stage of 3D printing of houses. I think I've read a few in China and something like that. I can't expound on it. What I know is that some of the printing has used special concrete. For example, it is not necessarily the kind of normal reinforced concrete we know and all that. But just to water your curiosity, it is an area ready for a lot of research. So it is available for engineers to research, and you can take up that challenge. You can take a project on that area. Now, through building information modeling and stuff like that, there are new concepts that have emerged. And IoT and stuff like that, we are calling it design for manufacturing and assembly, whereby you basically are able to think of future buildings not being constructed, but being manufactured. So I think that's another area for you to think about. And even as you go about that area of 3D printing. So I would rather, leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, can you hear me? Sorry, I'm having some audio issues. I think you went out when there was a lag on my side. Meet, are you happy? Are you satisfied with Engineer Shammah's answer?
Yeah, that was good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Shammah. I know I have put in the deep end trying to talk about 3D printing and concrete, but thank you very much for your input. So I think now also this one goes to you, Engineer Shammah. It's from Lavin Kaiser. Maybe Clavin Kaiser, you can unmute yourself.
My first is I like to thank you, Fiona, for the session. I have been enjoying. I'm Kaiser from Egerton, a civil and environmental engineer student. So my question was to Mr. Shammah. What types of softwares is he recommending for engineering, civil engineering as per now?
That's interesting, Calvin, and I'm grateful you asked about that question because, like you all know, I think I alluded in my presentation, softwares are evolving and all that. At the moment, there is kind of like no one-stop software that will solve you from superstructure up to substructure and completely deliver. But there's a very big attempt by Autodesk through the BIM, you know, the 360 BIM, but they have Civil 3D, they have Revit, they have Robot, and you can model in Revit and design in Robot and return and detail in Revit. So it's a big thing. If you want to invest on that, it may be helpful for you. Now, that said, the other softwares, for example, Protostructure. Well, I've used Revit, I've used RSA, which is Robot Structural Analysis. There's also Protostructure, which is like a one-stop shop. You can model, design, and analyze on the same thing. So you will most likely end up, there are even ETABs. ETABs also you can model, design, analyze, and they have also now given a provision for interoperability. You can model in ETABs, send to Protostructure and design, analyze, and all like that. So I have used Protostructure. I like it because it is, for first job, I do it from beginning to the end. Robot structure analysis and Revit, I find it quite complicated. Interoperability, I lose some things and all that. Of course, there are traditional, ETABS is still there. I've seen ETABS, for example, it was used to design UAP towers and very tall towers like Burj Khalifa. They used ETABS and all that. I need to check that, I'm not sure. But ETABS have been used for really quite tall structures. Yeah, so the best would be when you come out and you are in the field, you get one that you are comfortable with using and stick to it and become so good. I've also used STAAD Pro, so to say. So I like STAAD for steel. I'm now using STAAD for steel, and using Protostructure for concrete. I hope I've not confused you, because again, these are just tools. You must check what they are giving you. The best is you as an engineer, you know what you want, and then every tool you get, will it meet your needs? Thank you.
Excuse me, Engineer Shammah, if you don't mind, could you please type the suggestions you've given for these softwares in the chat, just for everyone to see, everyone to check them out online, perhaps?
Right away, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Back to you, Fiona.
Okay, thank you. So I'm seeing also there's some very nice comments going on. David Maradona, we see your feedback. This is a very, very rare opportunity for young engineers to grow. Consider doing it weekly and sometimes live on Facebook. This is a challenge to the sponsors of this meeting for the team in IEEE. Consider introducing periodic challenges, competitions, so as to encourage more students to venture into entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for the feedback. We really take it into consideration. So thank you so much. Also, I think Lynn Mutuku, I'm not sure if you've had a question or not. Was your hand raised at some point? Hello, Lynn Mutuku? Okay.
Sorry, Fiona.
Yes, did you have a question? I think your hand was raised at some point.
I guess that was a mistake on my end.
Okay, that's fine. So does anyone else have a burning question so that you can move to the vote of thanks?
Hello, good evening, Fiona.
Good evening, Chris, is that you?
Yeah, this is me. So my question goes to Oscar. I would like maybe Oscar can maybe explain to us some of the factors he considers when choosing the best cloud platform for his project. Because I understand, for example, when you look at different cloud platforms such as Google Cloud, IBM, and Amazon, they have they use different languages, plugins, and APIs. So maybe you can maybe advise us on the factors that we should consider when choosing the tool to use for these purposes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. That's a difficult one to answer, but I'll try my best. So currently, in my current operation, I run 100% on Microsoft Azure. And the reason I run 100% on Azure is that looking at the popularity of Windows around the world, you find that Microsoft's cloud platform is kind of simpler to use in a way, especially for people who've been used to working with Windows. That's one. Then they try and mimic the computing environment in as much as it's virtual. They mimic what we call bare metal environment very well in my view. So I normally propose Azure to someone who's starting. However, for the students here, I'd recommend DigitalOcean, especially if you're not starting a commercial kind of environment. DigitalOcean offers very cheap startup packages. So from free to like a few hundred shillings a month when you start using very heavy resources. So that would be my answer. It depends on the use case, because if it's someone who just wants to experiment, I'd recommend DigitalOcean. If it's someone who's starting out but they're running a commercial application, I'd recommend Microsoft Azure, because utaanza kupata vitu kama email integration ziko already, Office 365. So for a company which is starting out, that would make more sense. But if I really don't need like emails and PowerPoints and all this OneDrive stuff, then maybe I just need computing resources, I'd go for DigitalOcean. Then if I want very advanced AI capabilities, I'd recommend someone to go to Amazon Web Services, because in my view, Amazon AI is like a step ahead. They've really upped the game. So it would depend on the use cases, but as I've described, I think those three would be how I'd recommend. I hope that maybe answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Meet, your hand is up, and Tony Blair. Okay, can we give at least Tony Blair first to go, then Meet? Because Meet, you've already spoken. Tony Blair, then Meet. Meet here and here. Tony Blair. Then...
Hello. Hello.
Yes, Tony.
Yes, good evening. I'm Tony from the Technical University of Kenya. My question goes to Engineer Kithinji Muriungi. What are your 3 must-read books?
Tony, I think I'm not yet there. I'm just a graduate engineer, so that title with the respect of Engineer Shammah, it will be an abuse to the profession. But anyway, I have a different taste of the kind of books that I read. I normally read biographies. So in that area, I think getting to understand how people have built their stuff that are very iconic. And two, I also look into factual kind of books, factual in a manner that trying to get real facts that you cannot get in a biography. And three, I try to read books that are not revolutionary. Like, for example, a book that is not similar to any other. So in that line, I think the kind of biography I'll recommend is if you're really into tech, of course, understanding about there is one for Elon Musk, and two, there is one for a leader now in the leadership aspect, Nelson Mandela. And three, something to do with Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last. That will give you a leadership perspective. But the first one for Elon Musk, it will give you the tech aspect. The tech aspect. In regard to the factual basics, the factual foundational books, I'll go to 0 to 1. 0 to 1, that is more into the line of it's factual, yes, but also it's in line to innovation and entrepreneurship and how a very small group of people have really changed the world. Like starting with the PayPal Mafia, how that group has really done almost, they are touching almost everything. Let's talk of Facebook, which is taking the world in terms of communication. Let's talk of SpaceX, which is breaking grounds in terms of rockets and such stuff. Let's talk of Tesla. And then when you go to the other world of softwares, they have really good footprints in YouTube. They have very good footprints in things like LinkedIn, which is, I think, the most popular professional platform. So that is the second category of the books that I normally look into, 0 to 1. The first one was biographies. And then the third category is the books that are really outside the norm, that are not societal bound, or rather the books that really makes you question reality when you read them. So such category, the third category, I'll recommend 2 books that I've found significant. The first one is, of course, Rich Dad Poor Dad, for the obvious reason. This guy tells you education is important, and he really insists to get quality education, and not just going through learning, or you just go to school and then you graduate. He looks into you going to school and learning, not just going to school just to graduate. I think when you get to understand the power of Rich Dad Poor Dad, you will come to realize what makes a one-class people within a span of 10 or 20 years. We have someone who is very successful, and we have someone who is really hasn't achieved anything, but that person is very brilliant. So that is the kind of that category of book. And then another book that, of course, this seems like a very abusive, but I think it's very essential. It's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. So to me, that book, I put it in the third category because it's really it really brings out the actual things like prioritization. So many people fail to reach their potential because they really give a F so much into everything. I want to do something, but the first question I will ask is, what will Engineer Shammah think of me? What will Fiona think of me? What will Oscar Rombo think of me? So instead of you focusing on your potential or even going deeper into doing stuff that really matter, you end up being an average, and that is the norm in our society. You end up following the rules that you don't even know who set them, and by the end of the day, you die miserably, poor, without even being impacting not even a single person. Like you have died with all that potential in you. No one really knows anything about the potential you had, and you are gone, and all because of what will someone say, and maybe your priorities, following society and following the mob justice that really doesn't give you anything. Of course, when you read that book, you will come to realize the author gives a F to everything. He gives a F to the kind of friends he keeps. He gives a F to the kind of businesses he does. He gives a F to every time he spent, or every moment he spent. But when you read the title itself, you may think it's something that this is someone who doesn't care. But in actual sense, it's someone who really cares about everything. In fact, he cares more than you who thinks that you care. So those are the three category of books that I read. I normally read. I don't know why, but I read that kind of things, and then now I draw a journey into the science fiction kind of a thing, so that when planning something for maybe future, I have facts, and I know how maybe to get into that point. I hope, Tony, have answered your question in a satisfactory manner.
Yes, you have. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Kithinji. You know, I just realized that your daughter is there. In as much as this is a professional meeting, so you could not complete the whole title very well. So we'll just go next to meet Hirani. Hirani, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, this is me again. My question was to Engineer Shammah, asking him about if the extra 2 years, if the difference between the MSc and BSc would actually worth the extra 2 years of learning.
Sorry, Hirani, please repeat.
The job opportunities given to a MSc and a BSc, like, do they differ? Like, is it worth getting an extra 2 years for learning for an MSc course? Is it worth, like, the job opportunities, the difference between a job opportunity for an MSc and a BSc? Would they actually worth that 2 years of learning?
Okay, now thank you for the question. This is just, let me try to be as helpful as I can. Number one, all professional training is through apprenticeship. Apprenticeship means you learn from the master for you to become a master. So the earlier you plunge in as an engineer, the better for you, so that you're really learning hands-on. And this informs doctors. Doctors from their third year, they actually start learning from the ward. Doctors, from the first time they go into the hospital, they are given the cadaver to cut. So, I mean, to dissect. But us as engineers, we wait up to 5th year. Probably we do internship in 2nd year, 3rd year, 4th year, like I did internship in 2nd year, 3rd year, and 4th year. So by 5th year, I really knew pretty much what I wanted, and it helped me. So for me, the earlier you plunge into professional practice, so that you are dealing with actual, solving actual problems, the better. There are those who opt to go back to do MSc first. I don't think it was useful for me. I didn't know whether I need to do structural, whether I need to do what by the time I was graduating. So I think it helps to do some experience before you go back. But now, if you are first class top brain, and you know really you want to be a lecturer in structural, you can go back and do your structural MSc and even a PhD. But my journey was, I went into the field, I didn't know whether I wanted to do structural or what, I know something. I've ended up doing an MSc in specializing in geotechnical engineering. And I was very deliberate about that because there was no geotechnical engineering programs offered in Kenya and even in East Africa. I chased a scholarship to the UK. I did not succeed because around 2008, I was fighting for Chevening scholarship. I did not succeed. But locally, why I'm the Kimathi University of Technology is because there's that program, specialization in geotechnical engineering. So, and I can tell you it's worth it. But this is 12 years down the line after graduating and working and earning money and doing other masters. I did my MA because I was a project manager and I wanted to understand projects. I did my PMP because I realized I'm doing projects so many projects, and I needed certification and understanding in-depth to have an in-depth understanding for projects. So basically, after you are undergraduate, I would say spend money because there's a reason for you to spend on it. And those reasons can be varied. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Engineer Shammah. Thank you very much. Let's see. I don't think there are any other questions left, really. But thank you so much for all who've come. So I will now call upon Faith. I hope, Hirani, I hope you're satisfied with your question. You can be sure now Engineer Shammah won't forget you. So Faith, I don't know if you're here. Faith Lynette.
Yes, I'm here. Let me try to unmute myself. I think I have already.
Unmuted. Yes, yeah, you are. So yeah, you've done. Just introduce yourself. I've seen you have done chemical engineering. I think that is a very tough engineering discipline. So I think, yeah, go ahead and maybe introduce yourself and our partners.
So good evening, all of you, and thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, of course, our very important guests, that is our students, our speakers, and everyone else who joined, even the daughter who attended with Mr. Kithinji. Yeah, so thank you everyone for attending. So my name is Faith, and I am account manager for East Africa for FESTO Didactic. And yes, together with this amazing team, that is IEEE, of course, University of Nairobi, Michelle Boit Foundation, BeeTheEngineer, and SES and STEM Wahandisi La Femme. And of course, together with JESA and all the other University of Nairobi associations, we organize this together. So in one way or another, they've played a part to ensure that this is successful. And as we, the main purpose as to why we really organize this is because of the many reasons that our speakers have shared today. And I like really to quote some of the statistics that have already shaped our the future of work, which is actually happening today. For instance, we know that there are more than 4 billion people who use mobile phones. There are almost 18% who are connected to the grid, that's electricity. Also, over 90% of world's data has been processed in the last 2 years alone. And of course, also there are more than 2.7 million robots that are operating in our factories today. So with this in mind, and also the new experiences that we've been through as also like professionals in the industry, we felt the need to really come together, connect with students, try to share what we have learned, how we have navigated, and also our knowledge coupled with these technological facts. We felt the importance of this mentorship. So we are glad that you were able to join us, and we are hopeful that we will continue to do more together. So this is the one of them, and we promise that there will be many more coming up. And I hope we will tell a friend to tell a friend so that you are able to attend the next session. So thank you very much, and back to you, Fiona.
Thank you. Thank you. I see Ramla is clapping. Thank you very much. Now I think we move on to Clinton, our vice chair in ESSA. Maybe you can just tell everyone thank you for joining us, and then that will be it.
Okay, thank you, Fiona. I hope you can hear me. Yes, Fiona?
Yes, you can be heard.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, thank you everyone for making time to come with us. And first of all, it is an immense pleasure to give a vote of thanks for this occasion and to everyone present. First of all, I'd like to thank the Lord Almighty Father for bringing us to have this event. It was such a successful event. And to our speaker, I'd like to thank this opportunity. Thank you for creating your time and coming to speak to us. Engineer Shammah, thank you so much for the inspirational speech or the inspirational talk that you're bringing to us as students. The 10 skills that we need for future job. I think it is us to students that we now ponder on them and to go forward. And we thank you so much for gracing our occasion and being our keynote speaker for this event. And to Oscar Rombo, we are really glad. We appreciate you for elaborating much more future jobs that we need. And it is our hope that we shall collaborate together so that you can work in none, so that students can see the practical or physical demonstration of the drones that we talk about and also the 3D printing. Most students are beyond for it, and we hope we shall cooperate together. And also, Kithinji, we thank you so much for speaking passionately about the soft skills that students require as a young professional. So as we grow in our profession, we are really glad. Thank you so much. And to our partners, STEM Wahandisi La Femme, the BeeTheEngineers, the FESTO Didactic, the Michelle Boit Foundation, also the IEEE Young Blood, and we thank you so much for bringing this event closer to home. And we look much more for collaboration with you guys so that we can make such event more similar event to the student. And also to our partnering bodies, the IE chapter, the MESA, SES, EBESA, and other professional bodies. We really appreciate for coming on board, making this event is a successful one. To everyone, I thank you for the time that you have created and for being with us today. And I wish you all the best, and we are just grateful. Thank you so much. Fiona.
Yes, thank you, Sir Clinton. Clinton, we actually call him Sir Clinton. We don't call him Clinton. We call him Sir Clinton. So thank you again, everyone. So I'm going to end the call right now. Thank you for joining. You can leave at your own pleasure now. You can leave by clapping. Yeah. Thank you, Erika Boy. Yes, Faith. Yes, Oscar Rombo. Yes, Sydney, Vivian. Oh, yes, Gennaro. Yeah, this is the time I should mention your names. Cheryl, Timothy, Sydney, Brand, Lithua, Elisha Onyando. Yeah, clap as you're leaving, guys. Claire Minor, Tris Marimi, David, Ness. Yes, yeah. Faith Langata. Brand Kithua. Yeah, leave as you're clapping. Yes. Nkatha, I see you. Jacqueline Muthiambo, Ramla. Yes. Ramla again. Yeah, clap as you're leaving, as you're pressing the X button. Guys, we need to end this call. Ramla, yes. Anyway, for purposes, because the meeting is being recorded, we'll have to end the call now. Nicole, Mwenda, Gitonga, Joan, Ongoro. Yeah, thank you, everyone. It's been a real pleasure.